I'm Brandon.
And I'm Brandon.
And welcome back to Apollo City Comics, your everything and anything, it's anything and everything podcast show, isn't it? Fuck, man. You always get that one.
It's the everything and anything comic book podcast.
There you go. And you know what? We have a spectacular show for you. And it's been crazy. So, as many of you know, our third birthday is coming around. But our birthday is on Halloween. Like, that's the launch of the show. And we're on our third birthday, 100 episodes. And we got a download milestone as well of like 4,000. So thank you everyone who's been listening to this and been consistent. And, you know, if you've come in recently or been there from the beginning, thank you so much. It's crazy. And so we decided to do a very spectacular show for you, a king size show, if you will. But first, we have some, of course, announcements. Go check out Coffee and a Comic, and there's no video to this, but I'm drinking out of his mug right now. And hit up Frank. He has a pull list set up for you, and just get any comic you want. He deals with every single distributor, all the indie stuff, all the mainstream stuff. He'll find it for you. He'll start a pull list, and you get a 10% discount code at the bottom in this link, so check that out. And Brandon, what's up with our other pals?
At this point, Lesser Known Comics had 3 days left in their Kickstarter, but with this episode out, it'll be officially over, and hopefully they have hit their goal. But you can still check out their comics for free digitally online. I don't know why I can say that. They have digital copies of all their books available for free. You just use the email to sign up, and you can download the PDFs, and they're right there. And basically, they have new books coming out. At this point, I don't know exactly if you did back the Kickstarter. It does say December 2021 is the delivery date, but I'm not sure exactly what the day is gonna be. You know, when they arrive. But either way, if you did back the Kickstarter, that should be when you get your prize for whatever level you pledged. And make sure to check it out because you can still check out their stuff for free online. It literally takes seconds. So
yeah,
make sure to
little
check
Christmas
that out.
present for you guys. So go hit them up. There's some great stuff. I think like 7 new books out right now. But today, ladies and gentlemen, we have a King Sized Kirby episode for you. And live from New York, we have, well, I guess New Jersey's kind of New York too. I mean, that counts, right?
People who aren't from here say that.
Yeah, there you go.
They are too.
Hey, I'm
separate.
in New York.
Unfortunately.
Tommy and Mike of
Yeah.
Jacked Kirby Podcast. Hello.
Yes. Thank you.
Hello,
Thank you
guys.
for having us.
How you
This is
guys?
really cool. I know we've been friends on the social media for quite a while, and we've talked about doing something together for a long time.
Yeah.
So thanks for finally having us
saying
on.
it for like 2 years, I think.
Before listeners should know, before we started to record, you kind of told us this is a milestone episode for you guys, 100th episode, and you like asked us to be on it, which
I
is
almost
like
freaked out. I was like, I think you got the wrong guys. I think you guys are looking for a different podcast, and we're not the one. You know?
And it's the pressure now, Mike. Now we have to. It's got to be a good episode.
I always bring my A game. I don't know about anybody. Yeah, that's it.
Take your shirt off.
There's no video, right? Okay, great. What shirt?
Well, now there might be.
Oh,
That'll be a
nice.
Patreon exclusive.
Patreon, nice. I'd sign up for that. I'd sign up for my own topless video. That'd be great.
Just make it the thumbnail for when you click
Yes.
on it. You know, like here's a quick preview.
The mic package, you know?
I'll do my best Atlas
Mic
pose. You
package.
know, like my best. Do my best Atlas pose.
The New York special. So we'll do. Oh, damn it! You're not.
Yeah. So Mike is from New York, but now he lives in Jersey, and I'm still in New York.
I'm
in
born and
Brooklyn.
bred
okay.
New Yorker, and
He left.
decided that I wanted to get out of here as an adult. Tommy still lives in Brooklyn. God bless him. And, you know, it brings an interesting dynamic because they make fun of me for leaving. But meanwhile, I'm only like 40 minutes away. And, you know, I work in Brooklyn. So I go to Brooklyn every day anyway. So it's really not that much of a difference. But everybody just makes fun of me for leaving. And I'm like, okay, great. So that's the way it goes at this point.
It feels like it's kind of like that no matter where you live. Like if you live somewhere and move kind of out of the city limits, you kind of people make fun of you a little. Like
You're a sellout.
No, I sold the fuck out.
It's kind of like that with San Francisco because, it's the Bay Area, right? So there's different regions to it. And, some people live in the East Bay, commute to San Francisco, or vice versa. Live in San Francisco, commute to East Bay, or whatever. And it's like, oh, you moved out of the city. Where'd you go? Oh, I went to the peninsula. And it's like, well, why did you do that? And it's just like, it's like 30 minutes away.
For a driveway, for a yard, like that's why I did it. I don't know about anybody else, like.
But it's like no matter how close it is, it's not actually. So there's always going to be that, like you could say, well, 15 minutes away. Yeah, I'm 5 inches from blowing myself. I still don't say I'm blowing myself.
That's a big 5 inches. It's a immeasurable gap.
Round.
Around. Well, since we're talking about it, like, I got to say, how is it growing up on the East Coast as like comic book fans to be kind of like where it started in a way?
Yeah,
great.
I mean, like I know, like when I was a kid, probably 5-6 years old, I have memories of going to candy stores and mom and pop, card and gift stores and stationery stores and stuff like that. And everybody had racks of comics or a reading rack or the upright racks of comics. And it was almost like one of those things like, here, take 50 cents, take 75 cents, and go get a comic book while we have to get whatever we're getting in the store. My grandmother used to walk me around the block to the stationery store. My dad used to run in and out to get cigarettes or to play lotto or whatever it was. And he would always be like, yeah, grab something, God, like whatever. And like growing up, I had like a bunch of comics that I probably had no idea what I even had. You know what I mean? Like looking back on it now, I had like these like horror comics from Charleston Comics, Ghost Manor. I had Planet Terry and Star comic books from Marvel's imprint. And then I had like, regular superhero books. And it was just like one of those things. It was like, oh, that's 60 cents. That's 75 cents. Like, let me just grab it. It wasn't like I was going to buy stuff. But there was dozens of these stores in your neighborhood, and where I lived in Queens, and I know where Tommy lived in Brooklyn, they were just everywhere. And they
there were a lot, not only just the newsstand kind of places that Mike's talking about, or like the candy stores, but there were in my area about 5
when we got a little older
comic book shops,
right? Like when we were like 10, 11 years old.
Well, this in the mid 80s, there was the one that I went to all the time, the one that I always talk about, Mike, Fantasy Headquarters. That's when I first started going. That was the first shop that I went to on the regular. But around like 88 or 89, which is just a couple years later, there were other shops that we kind of discovered. And then when you get a couple years after that, you're able to walk into other neighborhoods or whatever. And there were a lot. There was a bookstore by my house that also sold comics. They had old comics and new comics. There was Fantasy Headquarters. There was another place called Baseball Cards R Us, which was a tiny little place. And that's just in my neighborhood. And there were neighboring neighborhoods that had shops too. And
there was
definitely
no rules to it. Like it was like random. It was like you'd walk into a pharmacy and there might be a rack there. And you'd walk into, you'd walk into a candy store. And we say candy store, we say bodega. Like it's kind of interchangeable, but it's like a small grocery store where you could get anything from cold drinks, cigarettes, lotto, like a convenience store.
Just a 7-Eleven.
Like, almost like a 7-Eleven, but like a mom and pop 7-Eleven, like where there's one on every corner and it's a different owner. And
that's exactly how my neighborhood here is, like, because I live in one of the one of the poor neighborhoods around El Paso. And dude, every single block we have one of those shops around here. You know which ones to hit up for certain stuff.
Yeah, because they sell drugs from the back most of the time too.
Hey, look, I see the cars that pull up, and you're like, that doesn't make sense.
But the cool thing about all the stores is that they were all different. Like some of them were actually Hallmark franchises, but then there were other stores that had Hallmark ornaments and cards. Like Mike said, the card shops, and they would also have like small toys, so you could get like sticker sets or coloring books or comic books. Like stuff that a kid loves.
Like turn them upside down and a naked lady gets on them. It's the shit like that.
Yeah.
Swedish
fish. It was a big seller over
here. 5-cent Swedish fish, everything. Like all that shit.
Yeah, they had like it wasn't a toy store, but they did have stuff that kids would gravitate to, and comic. They always had comics, but the other ones, the ones that were like the mom and pop shops, they were also different. Some of them had toys. Some of them sold like tapes. You know, the one by me, they sold Smurfs and the cars, or the little Matchbox cars. And other toys.
Tommy, that's like Eddie's Sweet Shop. Eddie's Sweet Shop, the big ice cream.
Exactly.
There's a legendary ice cream parlor in Queens. It's like over 100 years old, and if you look it up, it's like one of the it's like a landmark of New York City. It's called Eddie's Sweet Shop, and you know most people know it for its ice cream because it's a fucking ice cream shop. Like that's what you would know it for. But
like
when you walk in, they have one whole half of the store is knickknacks and shit like little figurines and stuff. And my sister only wanted to go so she could get a Smurf. Like that was her whole fucking goal. And I'd be like, "What are you talking about? They have an ice cream called."
Mike was a chubby kid.
They have an ice cream pistachio pineapple. They have an actual flavor that is pistachio pineapple. It's literally heaven on earth. And she'd be like, she'd be at the rack picking out a Smurf. I'd be like, "This asshole, can I get 2 pistachio pineapples?" And
oh man.
Hey, there's one for her, chubby.
Years later, no, I would eat her ice cream. That was my point.
I know that was
years later. Like if you still go to that store, they still have the counter. And they still have these little knickknacks, and they still sell candy. And it's like it's such a now in 2021, it's even more foreign. It was foreign concept when we were kids. Yeah. But
that's the thing. Like it's because of the time, because those kind of little stores all got bought out by the bigger stores or the chains, CVS and shit. Like they have all the cards and all the stupid shit, ornaments and things like that.
It's all the same. It's
all those little stores.
You know what I mean?
Like, exactly.
Those had personality and
the charm. Yeah, they had charm. They stood on their own, and they were all owned independently. So it would all be so different.
Yeah.
It's interesting too because I have like a 5-year-old, and I'll go to CVS, and every time I go to CVS, I'm like, I guess I'll walk down the toy aisle because I want to see what Transformers they got or something, right? But also like maybe they have something that he likes, and every time I'm like, nope, this is all shit. It's the same shit that was here last time, and I'm really disappointed. I'm genuinely disappointed. He's not even with me. Yeah, like
come on, CVS.
Better. Like, you have a contract with Star Wars, and you have a contract with Marvel.
Fuck yeah! Even when I was a kid, like probably, Brandon, we're about the same. We're the same age, so it's like I remember when I was like up to like maybe 10, 12, they still had cool shit at some of those shops, and I remember getting like Batman Beyond $1 and 2, which I actually cut up and put on my wall when I was a teenager.
Oh god,
yeah,
why would you do that?
You know what I mean? Yeah, $1,500.
Everybody
does. We've all been there. I used to rip the ads out. Like I'd be like, "Why is this shit in here?" And I'd rip the ads out, and I was like, "They're better."
But the back of the ad was a whole page of comics.
Actually, it's funny.
Now you had a story with a missing page.
Not really. I did this, so it's really random. I used to read the Sonic comics that were published by Archie as a kid.
Okay.
Those are actually good stories for the most part. But like for some reason, there was times where the ads would have a page on the other side. And there was times where the ads would be just a whole page on both sides, so I just ripped that out.
It was easy to rip out. Yeah.
And then I would do that and just like try to put it back in the book.
I just bought a whole lot of those Archie Sonic comics for my son because he's obsessed with Sonic. So I just got them. It was like 30 of those issues, and they're on their way. Actually, I just got it like 2 days ago. That's pretty funny that you said that.
Nice.
World record series, just saying. Longest ongoing video game comic.
Yeah. Oh shit! I didn't know that.
That's a very specific.
Longest ongoing video comic that features a blue hedgehog.
Dude, yeah.
There's only one.
Number one with a bullet.
It lasted 2 issues, but it still fits
video
the bill.
Game comics are a market, but Sonic just keeps going. I don't know what it is.
That is insane.
Interesting.
I had no idea there was Sonic comics in general.
Well, they just had a movie, so obviously the popularity is there.
Fucking triplicate of each issue.
I know, right?
He's like, I'm just saying, you might want to get it on the ground floor.
Hey,
I don't know.
Buy pig bellies.
I might have some for sale.
If anybody's looking for slab copies, I got a couple of 7s.
So, how do you guys feel about about the graded slab comics and whatnot. Are you guys fans of that practice?
I am, but I do it as an art. So I can see how corrupted it's become, and I really hate how bad it's become over the years. But the way I was introduced to slabbing comics, and the reason for getting them graded, was purely because I love going to conventions, and I love I hunted down Neil Gaiman. I hunted that guy, and once I got that stuff signed and I was able to slab it, I like having that signature, it's a prized book, or I have a dope Mark Bagley sketch of Carnage and Venom, and it's I want to slab that. I've a Tony Daniel sketch of Swamp Thing, and I was all right, well, this is I want to preserve this. Chris Burnham.
Well, that I understand, because
you're not necessarily.
And so
if I have if I get other books slabbed and I toss them on eBay, it's well, I don't got fucking room for it, and I got to kind of pay for all this stuff I spent for all these slabs. But I don't.
And it might not sell.
And I never inflate it. I've seen somebody bought. Dude, I got a Kevin Eastman Batman sketch, and I got Bruce Timm to sign it, and Kevin Eastman and Paul Dini to sign it, and I sold the book for $350. It's really not bad. And the guy that bought it for me, you could find it on eBay. I should put a link. No, I'm not gonna put a link because I want anyone to buy it. Fuck that guy.
You could find your own.
And it's $1,700. And I'm dude, I sold that to you for $350. You know what I mean? And that cover,
he's a scumbag
and shit like that.
Yeah.
So,
well, why did you sell it though? Because that seems like something I would never.
Well, stuff like that is just when I'm in a crunch and I need the money. It's all right. Well,
exactly. You want to use it for something that you actually love versus, just something that you had the opportunity to get.
My rent.
So
I love my rent. I love a house.
So
take it all.
It's funny. It's funny you asked that because Brandon and I are complete opposites when it comes to that world. I've not gotten a single comic book graded in my life. I've never. You could ask Brandon. I tell him all the time. I've brought it up in the show. I don't know shit about the whole fucking market of secondhand selling comic books, and scalpers are I'm not trying to be super rude, but they're the fucking scum of the earth when it comes to anything, dude. Just trying to get a video game console, trying to get a certain comic book, anything like that, action figure. It's fucking shitty, and
the market, right, Mike? It's fucking capitalism, baby. So the one thing I don't have a lot of comics that are worth a lot. Everything that I have is from the 90s, the 90s, 80s stuff that I liked that maybe wasn't rare, whatever, just junk basically. Nothing is really worth a lot of money. I have some Turtles comics that are first appearance of Casey Jones, shit like that. That's probably
that's awesome.
worth. But you know what? I was a fool. I didn't take care of it, so now I beat it up.
It's used.
But I still have it. I'd never sell it. I could probably get something for it, but I'm not. I want it. The one comic that I ever sold was a first appearance of Deadpool 4 years ago. I sold it to a guy. It's been in my comic bin since 1992, since the book came out. I read it, I put it away, and never read it again. I didn't care. It wasn't.
I
never had
Deadpool,
to.
There you go.
I'm saying,
at that never time, had to go back and reread.
You know what I mean? You wouldn't be oh wow, this is groundbreaking. You were this guy's gonna be gone next month.
Yeah.
I'm actually surprised I didn't have two, because I was buying two of everything.
Oh yeah.
Anything that came out, you'd be like, fuck it, I'll get two of them. But anyway,
balling over here.
There's a kid that I
they were 30 cents a piece.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they were about
$1.50, right?
So the store that I was talking about earlier, Fantasy Headquarters, that comic shop, they used, when Marvel Comics went up to $1.25. You guys don't remember, but it was forever they were $1, and then all of a sudden, the summer of '91, I think, they went up to $1.25, and it was a big deal.
I bet.
So now you're like, fuck, I can't buy 5 comics for $5, which was excellent when you're 14, And that shop, Fantasy Headquarters, they kept it. They kept selling it for $5. Wow. They did some kind of deal. If you buy 3, you're gonna pay regular price. If you buy 5, you get it for $5. And so sometimes I'd be like, fuck it, I'll just grab another. They were all Marvel comics, So I have, from that era, I have so many copies of everything, and I'm shocked I didn't have the Deadpool. But anyway, I sold it to this kid that really was a huge Deadpool fan, and I was like, "Look, man, I got it. I'll give it to you for this much cheaper than you're
Never
gonna
find it.
pay.
Yeah.
Like, it's in great condition because I never touched it. You know, it's been 30 years or whatever it was. I said the one stipulation is you can't resell it. You got to fucking hold on. He's like, I'm never. He's like, my favorite character. He was so happy, you know. So I was like, fuck it. If I'm gonna sell it, I'd rather to sell it to some guy that's gonna really love it than sell it to some scalper.
Exactly.
Some guy that's gonna
Tommy got his
flip
first kid because the guy gave the firstborn up for this comic, and now Tommy's raising his child. It's crazy. He said to me, "Don't ever sell it. Don't ever sell it, or else, you know."
He's done. He's done.
I don't have any kids.
He has
I don't know how to be kids.
Tommy's the godfather to my daughter, so that's pretty fair.
Oh, that's dope.
Yeah.
That's super dope.
Nice.
Yeah, it was very nice.
Yeah,
very
I mean,
honored.
even like I have like 30 boxes of comics. And
Yeah.
right now I'm like doing a purge where
yeah.
like if I haven't read it, I'm gonna read it, and if I like the series enough to reread it,
Okay.
I'll keep it. But if not, I'll toss it on eBay. And I'm not like selling stuff for like $50 a set or anything. It's just like
Just selling it to get rid of it. Really.
I go the like extra mile, honestly. So like I've gone as far as like just giving away comics. I literally, retrospect, I could probably go back and go, man, I probably could have made money, but like it's like
Should have held out to
Yeah,
that.
that always happens. Like no matter what.
to be honest, for me, like if I can give it to someone who's genuinely gonna like cherish it, genuinely read it, enjoy it,
For sure.
I'll say it right now on air, like right here. I had a Wonder Woman #1 signed by Liam Sharp,
Nice.
and I just, as much as I knew I could have probably flipped it, I saw someone that really loved Wonder Woman. I gave it to them. I was like, here.
You just
I
gave
just
it to
gave
them?
because like I'm one of those people. It's like, yeah, I wouldn't.
This motherfucker paid for that. The
I'm
first
gonna
pair.
drop my address into the chat
look
real
like?
quick. If anybody has any comics they want to send, just feel free.
Well,
I
it was
got
Wonder Woman
kids.
Rebirth #1, I should say.
Oh, okay. Wonder Woman Rebirth.
Oh.
Okay, yeah.
Rebirth #1.
Well,
Not-
fuck that
Oh,
shit.
oh,
I'll give it back to you if you want it.
Oh, but that's fine.
Yeah.
A few years ago, I found out my friend's son, who was like 12, started getting into comics, so I sent her a big box of shit that I was like, I read it once, and I'm like, this is good. No, there was actually good stuff. Some McFarlane Amazing Spider-Man's, like shit that I had doubles of that I was like, at the time they were worth like $6, and I even said to him, like, these are like, groundbreaking comics right here. Like, so I don't know if you're going to appreciate them because you're just getting into shit, but hold on to this because once you learn, you're going to be able to go back.
I
and
have
say,
the
like,
real
shit,
issues
that.
of this. That's cool.
Amazing
To
Spider-Man,
have the
you know?
real issues of those things is
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And yeah, so the thing that kills me is like when I'm missing like a certain issue in a run, if I want like a certain, I am always on the hunt for like a decent copy of Hawkman #4.
Okay.
I have like every Zatanna comic.
Keep that in mind.
I have every Zatanna comic out there basically, and it's like that's the only one I'm missing because that's the first appearance.
Oh, wow.
And because of the market, it's always like $400 minimum. And same thing when I'm missing like a single issue to something. Sometimes it's $10, sometimes 20, or a special edition of a video game or anything like that. And like it just sucks to go on eBay or any other site, and then the things shot up like 800% in like price.
Yeah,
and
of course.
I don't want to do that to someone.
I have a list of comics that I look for at every comic show, and any of those comics I could find tomorrow.
Oh yeah.
Any one of them, And this list, it went from a pad that I used to carry around with me to now note in my iPhone that has been passed from my iPhone 1 probably to my iPhone 12. And at this point, every once in a while I'll come across the thing I'm looking for and I'm like, cross it off the list. And like one of the things I'm looking for is a Mr. Miracle #2, right? But it's not that I can't get it because I could get it fucking anywhere. I get it tomorrow and I could get it for like relatively cheap. It's not an expensive comic. Mr. Miracle #1 and Mr. Miracle #4 are expensive because 1 is his first appearance and then 4 is Barda's first appearance. But 2 is not a big deal. It's just a principle of I want to find it. And I refuse to fucking buy it from eBay. I refuse to search it out, like contact a store and tell them to get it for me. Yeah. No, I'm going to come across it in a box one day and it's going to be that feeling that you cannot replicate. And this year I went to New York Comic Con and
Oh, nice.
not one. I didn't find one book off my list, and I was like, "That's cool. Like that's good. Like it gives me some. It gives me something for next year. Like I'm sure on a wall somewhere in New York Comic Con, the book was up there, or one of my books were up there, but I wasn't looking on the wall. I want to find it here in this box. I want to dig. I want to find it somewhere, or I don't. And like a good example was I'm going through. I collect the oversized Marvel graphic novels from the early '80s.
Nice.
No, not the treasuries. The Marvel graphic novels.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
They're a little bit oversized than a comic book, not as big as the treasuries. And
I got a couple of those. Those are dope.
Yeah, they're pretty cool. And
there's a lot of good ones.
I fell into them. I got like 10 of them gifted to me, and I was like, "These are really cool." There's 40 or 50 of them. I want to put this set together, and I've been chiseling away at it. And then,
if you got any doubles,
one day, me and a friend of ours, James West, we're at this comic show. We're at a little tiny comic show, and I'm literally shuffling through a box of these things, and I'm like, "Hold, wait a second." So I pull this one. So it says Marvel graphic novels, $5 each. So I'm like, "Oh, all right, cool." So I want to see if I can fill any holes, right? So I'm just going through. I'm not even looking for anything good, just looking to fill holes at this point. And I'm like, around, take this one out. I take 2 other ones just in case. I go up. I'm like, 15, right? He's like, yeah, 15. I'm like, cool, here you go. Give him the 15. I walk out. James is like, what was that about? He said, that's a first edition Death of Captain Marvel. And he's like,
Whoa.
what? And I was like, this is the cover. This is the first edition one. And it was a little beat up. It's not in perfect condition, but it's definitely not $5. And I was like, I don't have that one. So I was like, yes and yes. I checked off a box, and that guy got robbed. So fuck him.
Yeah, cool.
But it was.
Oh my god.
No.
He wanted
hey, man, if he knew what he was doing, you know.
Maybe
got exactly what he wanted.
Maybe he has 60 of them, and he's like, "Fuck that! That's a $5 book to me." But it was like a get over moment for me. James didn't know what was going on. He was like a little shell shocked by it, and he was like, "No way, it can't be a first edition." I was like, "I'm telling you, I know the cover." And sure enough, like I went home, I checked it all out. It's first edition. I'm like, cool. It's like
how do you know if it's a first?
It's a different color cover. The reprints had different color cover, and a different image.
Inside,
and then when you open it up, but I mean, I knew it right away because it's like a black cover and whatever it was.
It was on that list.
Yeah. But it was one of the ones that I was missing, and I was like,
oh shit, I think I have that then. All right, cool.
It's cool.
I know I have that one and a handful. I have like the Elric one that they had.
Elric, nice. Yeah, that's a good one too.
Cool. Shit. I don't know what else at the top of my head, but I have a few of them, and I know I have the Death of Captain Marvel, but mine's like fragile, so it's like I have to like set it up to be like, all right, I gotta. This is older. I don't want to like.
Is it falling apart?
It felt part of kind of loose last time I had it. They're kind of shitty put together.
Oh, okay.
And then
shittily put together.
You have a there's another great one called the Living Monolith. It's a Dave Michelin did it, and it's this like Egyptian god of a character, like and he's knocking over the Twin Towers. And like in retrospect now, that's like it's a very iconic cover.
Yeah.
But like in 1984 or whatever it is, it's like who gives a fuck? Like,
whatever.
Oh yeah, he's knocking over the Statue of Liberty. Ha ha. Like nobody cares, and they're like, no, we really fuck.
King Kong did this already.
Everybody's like, so then all of a sudden I was like, I will take that one as well. I was like, slipped that right in the.
That's sick.
Yeah, so
those type of deals are the best. Like especially at conventions. Just, that thrill of the hunt.
You feel it.
There's nothing that beats that, and that disappointment kind of feels good too. Sometimes
every year it feels great. Like I left there this year, bought a few things, but didn't buy anything off my list, and I was like, I'm okay with that.
I've only been to New York Comic Con once. I was lucky enough to go with this company I was writing for. And that's the only time I've been to New York. And I stayed in Harlem. It was kind of pretty cool, actually.
I was a mistake.
I think when I went, that's where I stayed too. Actually,
yeah, it was.
White people can go to
Harlem,
right?
It wasn't the way it used to be,
not like
years and years ago. But now Harlem's actually a very nice neighborhood.
They brought it, they brought it back to what it once was.
I'm like a big 60s and 70s like movie fan, and so I was like in Harlem, and I was like, oh, fuck.
Yeah, that's
you know what I mean? Like, but it was super chill.
Can I get a rebooking?
I was like, where am I staying? Prank caller.
we were walking around, leaving at night. I was like, oh fuck,
Yeah.
I got books with me and shit. But New York Comic Con was dope. I really would love to go back there because it's such a. I always go to San Diego Comic Con because I help out my comic book shop. So, and same thing with Brandon. He helps out his shop. So
I'm going to go so far as to say that the neighborhood where the Javits Center is probably worse than all of them now. It's like it's fucking desolate
nowadays.
Over there. Like, you get out of there at fucking 8:30 at night. It's like you're like, wait, what the fuck is going on over here? This is how a Freddy movie starts. Like, you know, like, and the end result is all my comic books are gone. Not a good look over there, man. Like, you got to leave there when it's still daylight. You're like, what time is it?
Damn.
6:30? Oh wow, cool. Yeah, all right, great. I
gotta be up early tomorrow. Like,
there's a new comic that's out right now called Maniac in New York. I don't know if you guys know about it. It's a aftershock comic. It's a great premise. It's like the guy loved Jason Takes Manhattan or whatever, you know, Friday the 13th. Jason takes, but he was like, this sucks. Like, he doesn't actually interact with New York City as a city, you know? And so he basically made a comic where there's this masked killer who's going around and nobody can stop him. And the cops just give up. Like, they're like, fuck it. Like, you know, it's a fact of life. Every couple of months, this guy is going to come out and fuck people up, and there's nothing we could do about it because he's obviously immune to, you know, bullets and all this stuff. And it's a great premise. And the guy even wears like a little bit of a hockey mask, and like the idea is pretty much the same. And for New York Comic Con this year, they did a exclusive, and the cover is the Javits Center. And like people are coming out of the Javits Center, and like he's just standing there with the two machetes, and I was like, this is probably an autobiography. This is not a made up story. Like, you know, like this happened last year, and then he wrote about it. Like,
that's fucking awesome, dude. That's too cool. Yeah, dude. Even with San Diego, you go a block down from that convention center. There's some scary shit past there.
Hey, the world is a scary place.
And we didn't know. Like, me and my fiance, we were looking for a shop, and we went over like the bridge thing, and then we found the little shop we were going to and whatnot. And we were on our way back. The scooter died, and I had to kick it to get to a spot. And then we found, like, on your phone, it shows you where there's like another one of those scooters to get on. And I was like, oh, there's one right around like this block. And we went through, and it was like an alley. And then there was like dogs barking at us. There was literally like a chop shop like right behind us. Yeah, I had to like program it, and then like you see the chop shop people staring at us, and then you're just like, oh fuck.
Everything stops in there.
He's like dropping all his books on the floor. Like, oh shit.
There's a guy grinding an axe, and he's like, he looks over to the left, and you're like, no, I'm just gonna pick up the scooter.
The fucking convention centers, you need like superheroes around the area to like.
Oh, for sure, absolutely.
Yeah, I've never been to San Diego. Hopefully one day. New York Comic Con has got just really crowded, and I'm sorry San Diego is the same.
New York was uncomfortably like crowded compared to like, San Diego.
I was looking forward to going this year because it was less crowded because of the restrictions and whatnot. And I got a couple of days before I wasn't feeling well, so I had to. My friend had given me a ticket, and I didn't want him to lose out on the ticket if I wasn't going to be able to go. So I had to give him my ticket, and I went and got a COVID test, and I was negative. But the day of, I felt fine, of course. And you're just but fuck, dude, it was too late then.
Yeah, the artist alley there is like the tightest artist alley.
Oh man, not even like artist alley, just going across the center. You're just shoulder to shoulder, everybody's sweating on each other. And, you know, I've only been to one San Diego Comic Con. I've been
a lot of tits though.
I've been to God, I lost my train. I've been to like
just everywhere.
I've been to like
kids just threw him out of whack.
I've been to San Francisco Comic Con. I've been to WonderCon and some other random ones.
Oh, cool.
And you know, San Diego is the one. You know, so like you're just always just like crowded everywhere. It's just it doesn't matter where you go. Bathrooms, food, artist alley, buying stuff. It's just everywhere. It's just got people. You can barely move and breathe.
Yeah, at least there I always found like
good for them. I
could breathe like in the outside of it. But New York Comic Con, I'm lucky I had the press junket, so I got to go upstairs.
Oh yeah,
was, like,
really
and,
lucky.
Like, there was like a beverage. I was like all parched.
So
and, like,
years ago, we started a website, CCD, Cultural Compulsive Disorder. Still on the web, ccd.nyc. our friend Rob, and tons of our good friends have been involved. It's like a big group project that we all did.
Nice.
We would always like email each other stuff and text each other stuff. And I was like, fuck this. Let's put it all in one place. You guys want to write a column? We want to do an article. And so I started it, and people started jumping in. Tommy, Rob, all these people got involved. And what ended up happening, there was like a con in New York. It was a Big Apple Con, not the Comic-Con. And they were like, press, if you want to apply. And I was like, I'm press, like, I'll apply. And they gave us passes. And we were like, we're fucked up now. Like, you know, like, and so me and Tommy show up with a camcorder, and we just start recording interviews with people. We interviewed fucking Doug Jones. We interviewed Erin Gray. We interviewed like all these people, like huge fucking stars, people that we know, the whole cast of Human Centipede, like all these movies that were out at that moment. And so we got that thing. We wrote up all these stories. We did the whole thing on the website. And then sure enough, like the next, you know, we're like, let's apply for New York Comic Con. We get it. We were like, what? Oh, shit, we got press passes. So now they get these press passes. So we're upstairs. We're in the lounge. We get the fucking water. It's like, you know, like nice. We don't.
It's nice. It's super
drop
dope,
your
right?
bag off. Like, it's really great, you know?
It was great, yeah. It was a big help.
Yeah. No,
you know?
hell yeah. Because, I mean, for San Diego, I'm fortunate. Like, my San Diego trips are unlike any others. I have friends that have a booth, and I could put my stuff there, and I could buy stuff and store it there. And at the end of the convention, we all kind of take it back to the hotel. You know what I mean? Like, I have a whole system, and it's but having that press junket, like, it's cool. You guys get to experience that because it's the same thing. You're like, oh, I could breathe, I could sit down, like, I could play.
And then and then also though, but like we got to interview people like us. Yeah. So like me and Tommy would literally interview people, and like like serious people. Like we interviewed Max Brooks. We interviewed Carol Spiney, who played fucking Big Bird on Sesame Street. Tommy interviewed him. You know, that was fucking
very exciting.
Tommy's a huge Sesame Street fan, Muppet fan, and he was like interviewing him. Yeah, it's fucking amazing.
Big Bird, man, come on.
Like Max Brooks was so great. You know, like he was such a good guy, and like we'd go up. We didn't know what the fuck we were doing. You know, and like they were used to like a certain, you know, like style or method of whoever would come up, and we'd be like,
like, hey, we're gonna hit record now. You ready? You know what? Who? You know, just say CCD. All right. Hey, it's Tommy. Welcome to the, you know, whatever. And we just
Doug Jones was the best, right, Tommy?
And that guy was talked to us for like an hour. You know him, the actor. You know, the Pan's Labyrinth and
Silver Surfer
Silver Surfer and dude, he's great guy. And but the cool, you know, to bring it kind of back to comics a little bit was because we were getting these passes to go to these shows, and we were also getting like movie passes and shit. So we were pushing us to do more with the brand, let's say. And because we were meeting all these artists also, we're like, well, we got all these artists. Let's start. Mike would feature them on the website. You know, we met this guy, put the interview up. He would find guys online whose artwork he liked and write about them, and then become friendly with them because of it. And I think we just started doing more with like the brand and with the comic book shit. And for me, I know when me and Mike started going to these kind of conventions is when like Kirby clicked for us.
Okay.
Because because up until that point, I wasn't around comics for years because I stopped collecting regularly in the mid to late 90s. Mid 90s. And and I would buy trades here and there, you know? Or, you know, the only one comic I continually bought for all these years was Savage Dragon. That was the only one.
Still going.
So my collection got destroyed, and I just never followed up with it. But we were I forgot what I was talking about. Eric Larson.
Well,
why did I get off track?
You used to just you know we started getting back into comics.
Yeah. So I was finally around comics again, and also in the I guess the late, 2007, 2008, I started also getting back into buying trades and also getting into like retro kind of art. Cool. So like retro comic art through pop art. So I started to get visually interested again because I'm an artist, you know, and I hadn't drawn even. Well, I was still drawing, but those things kind of combined, it just kind of put Kirby on our radar. And we just started buying whatever.
We would see all this stuff, and then we'd be like, "This is very interesting. Like, this is look, cool Kirby hands, and cool Kirby lasers, or cool Kirby tech, like like whatever." And then it kind of became a thing. Like, wow, this is so much better than everything else from that time period. And then we're like, how much better is it? And then we were like, wow, it's really a lot better. And then we started doing like a little bit of deep diving, and then like grabbing some collections, and then we were just like couldn't stop talking about it. And then. Like one day it just hit me. I was like, what the fuck are we doing? Like, let's start a podcast where we talk about Kirby, but it doesn't have to necessarily mean that the whole episode is about any issue or about any thing that Kirby did. It's more about like his influence and his effect on the comic book industry.
Like a celebration of
every
work.
Once in a while, some of the episodes are very specific to an arc or one comic even. And then other times it could be a character. And then other times we're just kind of riffing and talking about whatever we want to talk about. And thankfully for the quarantine actually opened us up to, we used to record in person. And it became a little bit difficult when I moved to Jersey. We were trying to keep it going, and we were trying to find a way. And then all of a sudden,
sometimes it would be like one episode every 2 months. Like, and it wasn't steady at all.
The quarantine hit. We were like, okay, we're stuck at home. Like, let's figure out a way. We tried a few different systems before we landed on Zoom and all this stuff. But we ended up like scoring all these big interviews because we just started fucking texting people, started Facebooking people. Tommy is really good at being aggressive, at just, hey, what's up? You want to come on the show? And it's like, this is, Jeff Garland, or this is,
Jeff Garland.
Jeff Smith, like Bone. And, Tommy just messages them. And then, some people answer back and some don't. Mm-hmm. And we got, like, in a year and a half, we interviewed, like, if we never interviewed another person again, I'd walk away and I'd be like, that was worth it. Like, that was good. Like,
nice. Hell yeah.
We did some amazing things, and it all became possible because we opened ourselves up to the idea of doing something like this. We wanted to record in person because we thought it was fun. It was a thing to do. And, to get another person, a guest, especially a famous comic book artist or someone who's on a deadline of some sort, you could get them to give you an hour over the Zoom. But the drive to Brooklyn, like whatever, exactly. It was a perfect storm, and it worked out good for us because for the last 2 years, we probably churned out more material and quality, interviews and stuff than we ever did before. So it was really good.
Yes. Some of your episodes that I guess before really the interview times, one of them was like the whole debate about like I think Kirby drew Spider-Man and discovering if Kirby was the first one that drew Spider-Man or was it Ditko, because there's rumors that it was kind of just passed over to him. And that's the episode that really like captured me, and I was like, oh fuck, this is some deep diving, like just good. It was gold. It was just great information. But that was our.
Sometimes the episodes are very detailed as far as information.
Oh yeah.
Other times it's like we read the issue 10 minutes before we were about to record. Mike, did you write down the date? Okay, good. Let's go.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
And we just wing it.
How it vibes all the time with us.
Yeah, it's.
But we also use his comics and stories as a way to talk about so much other shit. So like we'll branch off into pop culture or history. Mike's a history teacher, so history comes up a lot. Art history, cultural stuff comes up a lot. Like there's his work kind of covers everything in life, so it's easy to kind of take a story, let's say about about him growing up in the Lower East Side, and then we could do a whole episode about the fucking Great Depression if we wanted to, because it ties into what he was doing, the work that he was doing. So it's good because it is definitely and always will be Kirby related, but the work is so broad that
even the last episode we did, we fucked up and we ended up using an issue of a comic book that wasn't actually drawn by Jack Kirby, but it was produced by Kirby and Simon Studios, Simon and Kirby Studios. And so we were like, well, counts anyway, fuck you guys, and we're going to still do it. You know what I mean?
The connection.
Got his name on it.
Kept moving. You know, like we were just like, all right, you know, this is what we're doing. And
we acknowledged that, you know, we acknowledged that we
picked the wrong story. And I sent the wrong link I meant to send the link to one story, sent the link to a different story. And the guests read it and they were like ready to go. And then 20 minutes before the episode, Tommy's like, Jack Kirby didn't draw the story. And I was like, what? What are you talking about?
It was like an hour before, and these guys are on the West Coast and one's in Chicago. I'm like, we can't change the story now. On
10 minutes.
You know, like they're guests. I'm like, look, you know, we're going to connect it to Kirby because he was involved in the production. They probably wrote it. And it was like, you know, you pivoted.
They were
like,
guiding
you know what?
it, you know?
Who gives a shit?
Exactly.
It's about comics. It should be fun. And that's another thing about the show is that we didn't want it to be like snotty. We didn't want it to be like collegiate. You know, like we wanted it to be fun. We wanted it to be so that if you're not really into comics, but you'll enjoy the show enough to listen again. And now you start getting an interest in comics.
Yeah,
you know?
you guys cover a good variety,
like,
especially the deep diving in the characters you guys kind of do. Stuff that I'm just like, oh, fuck, I didn't even know I didn't know that was a thing.
We don't know. Half the time we don't know.
A lot of it's not true also.
There's so much, you know?
No, that's not true.
No, but that's Mike. That's Mike.
Like, the whole reason I started the Instagram years ago was because we would find all these Kirby images and send them to each other. And then the first question would be, what's this from? And I'd be like, I don't know. It didn't say. You know, and I'd be like, what do you mean? And then, like, that would be the...
Yeah, but it was, also a lot of other Instagram art pages were just photos. And we'd always get annoyed at that. I'd send it to Mike or he'd send it to me. It's like, look how beautiful this is. Where is this from? There's no information on this
follow
post.
up on, like, what is this version of Reed or what is this version of The Thing or Namor or Captain America? Like, what is this panel from? And, you know, like, I would send it to him or he'd send it to me and he'd be like, I don't fucking know. I don't know, you know, let's figure it out. And then, like, we'd have to Google search and do all this shit. And I was like, look, why don't we start this thing where we start a page where we give all the information, like not only share the beautiful image, not only give you some background, but actually tell you now, you want to read this book? This is Captain America, you know, 86 from 1968. And, you know, this is where you could find it. And
that's dope.
That became,
and this is who drew it. This is who inked it.
That became kind of
just
it's
one
kind of like a museum
shopping.
just for Kirby and your guys' stuff, and that's the cool part.
Well, that's what it is, right? That's what Mike always said. It was like,
you know, documentation of it. You know,
documentation.
And so at this point, it kind of lives on. So like now, people who just join us, like people who just come to us, they're like, I'm going back to post number 1. And scrolling up, and I'm like, that's fucking great. Like, because there's so much info there.
It's a whole lesson behind it.
Another thing, that's it's you know, it's history. You know, it's art history. It's pop culture history. You know, it's
people overlook that. And they just think it's a comic book. You know what I mean? But these are like the best artists.
It's an art form,
our,
man.
You know, generation.
And it's modern mythology. Yeah. You know, like 1,000 years from now, they're gonna, you know, be scratching pictures of Wakanda into the wall, the caves of these.
Sorry, I was gonna say I can't agree more because like the thing that people don't realize with comic books is, and this is a real thing I found out recently, was that like, you know, there's only 2 forms of art that are original to like the U.S. Jazz and comic books, and you know back then comic books weren't really a thing that were being preserved. You know, they were just kind of read, tossed out, or whatever. And, you know, that's why they have such high value now, because there's, like, barely any left on the planet. And, you know, to be able to make, like, a digital archive, whether it be, like, on social media or some sort of, like, cloud storage or whatever, this digital museum, it's, like, doing somewhat justice to these creators and characters and allowing them to be eternalized and live on, as legends.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, and this is our very small attempt at doing that for Jack Kirby. And because Jack Kirby, as influential as he is, and he's the king of comics, obviously, he still comes off in history as like an underdog type.
Dude,
Yeah,
we talk about
because
it all
of
the
Stan,
time, on the show all the time.
because of Stan Lee and his role in everything. Kirby winds up being the like the guy who you feel like isn't getting the recognition, even though he obviously gets the recognition.
It's not like a household name like Stan Lee is, when it
exactly. And like I think that another thing for us was that like we want to make motherfuckers need to know who this guy is and what he's done and how it's influenced so much.
He's done fucking everything, and people don't realize he made all of Marvel.
It's not Stan Lee, it's not Stan Lee on its own, or
and it's
Stan and Jack and Stan and Steve, and these things have to be known,
And the other thing people don't realize is the amount that he accomplished in the short amount of time.
Yeah.
I think I read some.
Well, he worked in comics his whole life.
I mean, he literally did like 12, 15-hour days. And I think I think that's what I read. I'm pretty sure he did pretty long days, he had to get that amount of work out. The thing is, like, I think he still holds like records that other artists have not been able to achieve. Like,
he might, yeah.
I gotta look it up. I was reading an article talking about the amount of pages he drew within his career between Marvel and DC. And
yeah, probably a lot because he also worked for other companies. He did several books at a time for each company. So it's not like doing one comic for a year. He's doing 5 comics for a year, So it's quadruple the output.
And then
it's a lot of fucking work.
And just doing his own world.
Scripting it, just coming up with things on their own. Like, it's different if I tell you here's the Fantastic Four, go write a story about them. They exist. You know what to do. The
Jack Kirby
you know their personalities. You could probably easily write that story. But he's making that up from the beginning.
Him for is over 350 pages. So it's a checklist. It's like literally, words. Like, it's not like a fucking filled with pictures or anything like that. It's basically a checklist. And the book itself, they just put out a couple years ago. They put out the Centennial Edition, which was for his 100th birthday. It basically has anything and everything that he was ever a part of. They have a section for writer. They have a section for artist. They have a section for editor. Like, whatever it is, different roles he played throughout his career. And it's a 300-page book. It's fucking gigantic. And it's just text. Like, there's hardly any pictures in it. Like, it just says like Adventures of Superman. It's like alphabetical A, B, C, D, and they put together this checklist.
Marry a photo.
It's got to be like damn near 300 pages, and like in like a size 10 font, and you're like, holy fucking Christ! Like, it's really a lot, and the more we look for topics, the more I'm like, oh man, what are we going to talk about next? And it's like, what aren't we going to talk about? Like, there's so much we haven't even scratched the surface of,
Yeah, you have a whole.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I feel like at this point we have some copycat Instagrams and shit. We know some other pages that have kind of nicked some shit from us, So obviously, people are like paying attention to what we do. We're getting invited by the Kirby Museum to do things with them.
Dude,
so that's amazing.
We're doing something right,
That's awesome.
Yeah, so
that's too cool.
I feel like we're doing something right
I make
here.
Stuff off of you guys for sure, because like my whole promo setup, like when I was trying to figure out how to
I make
promos,
the flyers every week.
I was like, how the fuck are you do this? And I
Oh,
was
well,
looking at your guys'
Tommy
stuff
makes
like
the
on the
flyers
side of the
every
screen.
week.
Like, all right, I'm just gonna mimic this shit because this is dope as fuck.
Oh
And so-
wow, that's flattering. Yeah,
that was fucking no, you guys, that was the cool part, why connecting with you guys and whatnot, because I was like, you guys inspired a lot of Apollo and what we did. And
oh, wow.
actually, if I'm gonna send it to you, announcement kind of, but you're gonna be drawing some stuff for Brandon and I, and we're gonna be using it for the Instagram and the podcast. And the original logo I made for Apollo City Comics, it was all Jack Kirby influence. When you look at the color scheme,
man.
yeah, the city and
Best.
everything. I basically, I'm from El Paso, which is called the Sun City, and I was like, all right, Sun, and I was looking at the Lord of Light stuff at the time, and so I was like, I'm gonna do Apollo.
That makes
and then
sense
the
now,
colors and
yeah.
all that. Like I wanted to make it super cosmic and like kind of like Bespin from Star Wars. Like I had all this stuff, but it was all Kirby from the root. And I was like, I'm gonna make it all fucking trippy. I can't draw
That's
like
cool.
this, but I'm gonna try my best. And I tossed it together, and that
It's a nice
thank
logo.
you. And it was like, it's like the only one I made for the show. I made it a week before I launched it 3 years ago.
Those are great.
And it was
Black light
just that
posters
heavy
they
metal
worked,
made
you know?
magazine that was.
They
like
did that for
Jack
San
Kirby,
Diego.
Lord of
They
Light
did,
stuff and
Oh, wow.
you know, years ago, and
yeah.
and then they made
It-
the actual
Crazy
issue,
stuff.
where it's like they finally printed everything. Yeah, we have a couple of
Yeah.
them. There's a
The
couple of
figures.
variants to that one. I know I have
Yeah.
like 3 or
They
4
had
of
a figure and
the
everything,
Lord
too.
of Light figures. But it's just kind of great because it's like even people who are like, "What's the podcast
Nice.
about?" And then you start to explain it, and they're like, you know, I'm not really or whatever. And then they're like, listen to an episode. I'm in. Like, you know, that was great. You guys talked about horror movies, and you talked about, you know, I don't know, fucking growing up in New York, and you guys told a funny
Yeah.
story about, you know, going out last month or whatever it was, or an art show that you guys did. And it's good because it's like tons. And there's a, you know, there's just this like it's a release of
Plus a lot of dick
like
jokes and tit
everything.
remarks.
We have everything going on, and we kind of get together and just kind of let it out, you know. And it's like what we would have done back
Human
in the day,
juice.
hanging out together,
Yeah.
or what we would have done. But now we're doing it with like a group of people who would never be around, you know. So it's fucking awesome to get a text from
Yeah.
somebody or to hear like what you just said. That's fucking great. Like to me, like I'm like that's what it's all about.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
I definitely didn't think that was the case. You know what I mean? Like that anybody was listening or paying attention even. You know, but after a while, it's just like, well, I guess somebody is.
Yeah.
because,
Yeah.
Didn't
we
plan
keep
it to
getting
be.
hit up,
Yeah.
and we keep getting these opportunities, and we're gonna take them every chance we get because we love it. You know.
And you guys have a good niche and everything.
And you
know?
also-
it's so centered, which makes it so much easier too.
I think
you know?
so.
Like, yeah.
It does and it doesn't because it's so centered. You kind of sometimes feel like you might be
Oh, yeah.
stuck. You know,
Well,
like because
Back
it's
in the day,
Kirby
we would
related.
just do like comic book commentaries and just talk about like each volume over and over.
Yeah.
We didn't. It wasn't until Brandon came onto the show a year and a half ago that we started
We started doing the movie stuff.
and
Yeah.
interviews.
Yeah.
and
We-
he's just made crazy connections.
We're at
for
like
us, so it's been,
130 episodes,
that
right? T?
widespread. But yeah,
And
I know what you mean.
something like
you
that.
could feel trapped
And,
in one thing for
yeah,
a bit, but
and-
there's ways to broaden it.
yeah, I think this week I think is 129.
Mm-hmm.
And
Something like that. Yeah. 28,
And-
120.
Yeah, I can look right now.
well,
I have it
God,
open.
sorry, Brad. Yeah, that's last week. Yeah, so 129 tomorrow.
Sorry, I was gonna say I
And-
looked on your
and
podcast
ba- and
page. it's
basically,
episode 128
like,
came
on
out.
one hand, we're
the
like,
14th,
what the fuck
so
are
that's
we
where
going to
you're
do
at right
next?
now.
And then on the other hand, we're like,
29 is going out
tomorrow.
tomorrow.
Episode, yeah.
Nice.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, we haven't, like, wait, you would think that would be episode 4. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it was like,
There's so much, and
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, there's so much, and it'll. That's why we could just keep doing it, and we could also revisit stuff because as you read more, other things kind of take on new forms,
Oh,
you know.
yeah.
And as you learn more about Kirby, you know, things about him and his life come out in his work, and you're like, "Fuck, I didn't realize that then because I didn't know." But now I'm gonna revisit this, and we could do that same fucking
And just
episode
doing the
years,
timeline
you know,
of stuff too.
years
like,
later, and
it's
it just
reading
changes.
What fucking Fourth World before Eternals
We-
and shit, and then you're reading Eternals and you're just like, what the
Yeah.
fuck? Like I can see how everything's spanned
So
and
I'm gonna
connected.
take- All
and it
connected,
makes
yeah.
sense with
Yeah.
one thing. And I mean, that's the cool part. Like getting into Kirby is like a huge, weird, bizarre trip. Did you guys?
Everybody always gets into them
indirectly,
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Were you guys
Yeah.
like into it like from I don't know, were you guys ever Kirby fans growing up and understood Kirby, or were you kind of like just okay?
Yeah, indirectly, he wasn't. you know, I'm reading comics in the 80s and early 90s is when I was really fucking, you know, like knee deep in comics.
Like, you know, like a lot of people who grow up nowadays don't know the music of the Beatles, but they know the Beatles. So
you knew he was peripheral.
You know what I mean? Whereas like people our age are like, what the fuck do you mean you don't know the Beatles? Like, what are you smacked in the fucking mouth? Like, I don't understand.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's also, you know, because you see his images all the time too, so you definitely know he because, you know, his stuff was always used for the promo shit, you know, the logos and whatnot. So like Mike said, without inadvertently, you know who he is, you know. But at the time, you know, when you're growing up reading Image Comics, like his kind of artwork is so far.
He was still doing shit like Speedball and stuff like that. You know?
Who I did know because I had those reprints of the Amazing Spider-Man books since like 1980.
Yeah.
89. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but not that I would have known, you know. But I knew him, so I did kind of grow up, you know, for whatever, for lack of a better word, knowing his artwork. But Kirby was just so out there, so you don't really pay attention, you know. And as you get older, you appreciate as an artist. That's what kind of attracted me to it. Because when I started kind of getting into art, pop art again in like 2008, that's when I started to really pick up on his imagery.
Dude, I feel the same with that.
And then like 2 years later, me and, you know, Mike and I are in shops, you know, digging through crates.
I didn't get into Kirby's artwork at first for a while. Like it took me a minute until I really literally started to appreciate.
Did a couple of cool things.
And then I finally looked at Kirby, and I was just like, I admired some of the lore and the creations. I was like, yeah, cool stuff, but it wasn't that great.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, you know, just some here and there, you know. And then I sat down and I read. I got like the Fourth Road Omnibus, and then I was just like, well, I'm gonna fucking.
The four.
Like you really did jump in. You put $150 book.
Yeah, I think. Oh, actually, I think I had the mini volume.
Okay.
4. Yeah.
Yeah, those are nice.
1 and 4.
Yeah, those are nice.
And I was like, all right.
So growing up in the 80s,
that's cool. This all makes sense.
Superpowers was huge, and
epic
those toys were a big part of our childhood. You know, I'm born in '79. Yeah. Those toys come out when I'm 5, 6, 7 years old. You know,
I just read
85, 84, 85, 86, and the Superpowers and Secret Wars toys. Those 2 lines of toys just basically influenced my life in terms of comic books. My favorite design of a character from Marvel Comics is Hobgoblin, and my favorite design of a character from a DC Comics is Mr. Miracle. And both of those are because of the toys in those lines. The Hobgoblin toy was incredible. It came with the glider. It was orange and blue with the yellow face and the purple glider. Like the colors popped, and I loved the hood. I loved everything about it. Before I ever read a Hobgoblin comic book, I was in. And I didn't know who the fuck Mr. Miracle was, but that red and green and yellow garish looking costume, the gimp mask, and the whole getup as a 6-year-old, I was like, what is this guy doing? You know, like, bring out the gimp. And it truly like I was just like, whoa, like gimps cool, and you know, Batman's Batman, but who the fuck is that guy that's in the candy cane outfit? Like, you know, like he looks like he's dressed up like for a fucking Easter parade or something, and it doesn't make any sense. And here he is in the toy line, and I was like, who the fuck is this guy? Like, you know, you got like introducing Superman and Wonder Woman and Mr. Miracle's like, Mr. Who the fuck is that guy? You know, so those toys were basically like a thank you to Jack for all his years that they milked his shit, and him being cut off very early at DC, and they basically offered him like a payday. Redesign some characters for this toy line, and we're going to pay you probably more money than you ever made in comics. And his Dr. Fate and
Dude, I love
his Green Arrow. You know, he did it in the 50s. Drawing the modern Green Arrow, Martian Manhunter.
Yeah,
you know, that's the only time he ever drew. It's one of the only time he ever drew Batman and Robin, and he did a few like fan sketches of Batman and Robin for some zines and stuff like that. There's a real famous cover with Shazam and Batman, with Batman's fighting Captain America. He did that one. It's a sketch that he did, but in print he hardly ever, if ever, did it. And Wonder Woman he never drew either.
Oh wow!
And so he drew these iconic characters, you know, the Joker, like, you know what I mean, like that's a big deal. And like he never got to do it, and we always get asked the questions like, which characters didn't he draw? And it's hard because we're like, I mean, did he, you know, like there's more Marvel characters than DC because of superpowers, because he got to like check a lot of boxes with superpowers. But like characters like Wolverine, he never drew Wolverine. He never drew Ghost Rider. I mean, not Ghost Rider. Ghost Rider he drew because he did a couple of covers. And you're like, oh, that's cool. Like he did. That's one I wouldn't think he did, but he did. And then on the other hand, it's like the Punisher, Wolverine.
Oh, shit.
They were popular, and he just never did them at that time because for whatever
I wouldn't
reason.
even imagine that one. What's a modern character that you guys would be curious?
I mean, I'd like to see him do anything with Iron Man, with like all the different armors and like the Mach 30 billion that we're up to or whatever it is, you know. And it's like all these things come out, and I'm always like, oh god. And then I look at it, and I'm like, that's kind of cool, you know. Like, and then like sometimes the retro ones come up, like, you know, the Silver Star, the Silver Centurion suit that he had in the 90s. Like I remember in the 90s, I was like, that's fucking terrible. And then like now I'm like, that suit fucking rocks. Like that suit kicks
that's
ass.
one of my favorite ones.
Fuck you guys, that suit is the best, you know. And it's like Iron Man with the nose that Kirby drew. He drew him with the nose piece.
I've always
and like everybody was always like, yeah, right. It's hard. Like,
oh god, yeah.
I don't know. That's a tough question, man.
We were joking. We were saying before the show, right before you guys got on, we're like, what if Kirby drew a Venom one? That'd be, I don't know if he could pull off.
What was the one I said? I forgot.
That's what I was thinking. I would just like to see his versions of these characters that are really popular right now.
Too.
Deadpool,
I mean,
Venom,
Wolverine, like
Carnage.
he's just such an animalistic character. And
that would be
he's
cool.
Generally
that would be
short,
cool.
squat, and bulky, right? So, so imagine Kirby hands like Sam Keith is an artist that has a very bizarre visual style. And if you go back and you look at any of those Marvel Comics Presents from the 90s that Sam Keith drew with Wolverine, he's got these like ridiculously large hands, like Bam Bam hands, and, you know, huge forearms, and, you know, he's 3 feet tall but 6 feet wide, and, you know, like there's a lot of that, like a Pepsi can, right? And it's a you know, it's a character. I was like, I would love to see his like
my penis
animalistic version of Wolverine, because he used to draw these like, you know, these mutant fucking half man, half animal monsters in Commandy and all these other series. Forever People, you know, like that would be a fucking
beastly
cool
characters,
you know?
Forever People and all that,
Yeah, do you feel like I know everything he's done is pretty much like historical, but do you feel like there's like a character creator drew that?
I guess
when
I
you
would
saw
have
it,
to
you're
say
like,
Mr.
that was
Miracle.
cool, but then another
the
artist
Tom
took
King
it on. You're like, okay, this is actually kind of better.
He's taken the character to a place it's never been. Mr. Miracle has had 3 or 4 series throughout his tenure in DC. And they're okay, and you know, he's my favorite. Like he's like, I'm not even exaggerating. Like right next to me, right here, is my Mr. Miracle superpowers. Like, it's just to me, it's like, you know,
dude,
he's my favorite.
Sick.
I'm a big
Starts
Mr.
with that
Miracle
toy
fan.
right
the
there.
First, Kirby
and
single issue
I love Kirby's run on it, and it's magical, but Tom King's run was a good read, man. Like the whole, I was glued to it. And I was in on it. And like when we met him, we met Tom King and sorry, what's his name? The artist, Mr. Yeah, we met them at Comic-Con a couple of years ago, and there was all these people waiting for them. We were like, we're not waiting on that line.
Mitch Gerard.
They were about to start a signing, you know, like they were about to start, but they were just sitting at the table. And we walked by and we just started chatting with them. And they, you know, they were like, yeah, man, cool, da-da-da, whatever. And like Mitch Gerard looked at me, nice, yes, nice. Absolute Edition. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And Mitch Gerard just looked at me and he's like,
I got one of those. They signed my
ready thing, and he's like,
my Mr. Miracle number 1.
Yeah, I want to fucking print. Like, yeah, like I got one of the ones where Mr. Miracle's holding the baby. Darkseid's holding the baby. And he drew the thing on it for me, and I have that print, and I was like, cool. And then Tom King's like, give me it. And fucking he signed it too, and I was like, yes, we didn't wait in that line. Fuck you guys.
Nice, hell yeah. That series was one of the first series I showed my fiance, and I was like, if you want to read a good comic, like, bam, here you go, check this one out. And she, you know, every year she takes a picture of Tom King when we're at Comic-Con because she got the book signed and everything. For us.
She was like, "Oh, that guy's a mutant." It was like a
sketch and shit. Like, Frank, when I met Frank Miller and she had an electric.
You're gonna turn to stone.
Yeah, she was just like, "What do I say? Like, what the hell? You look scary as shit."
Just don't look him directly in the eyes.
Grabbed her hand and was just like. She's like, can I have a sketch? I'm such a big fan. And she's just like, yeah, we did
don't look directly in his eyes.
He's like, let me see your tits.
Practically. Him and Bill Sienkiewicz are in love with my fiance. Like,
oh, wow.
Yeah.
Maybe she's how you get them on the show.
But put her head, like superimpose her head over your head with the headphones on.
I'll pin my wife out to try to get guests.
She probably heard me. She's glaring at me right now. So.
Frank,
I don't know what character. I'm sure there are. You know, it's not like Kirby's version of every character that he created was the best. You know, a lot of his stuff was picked up by other creators, obviously, because that's how comics go. But
it's also like style.
I can't think.
And whatnot.
Yeah,
I think
like I can't think of how. Of any of I love the Neil Gaiman, John Romita Jr. Eternals book.
Oh yeah, you do.
I think it's great. Yeah, we talked about this actually not that long ago, and I think it's great. I think it's different, you know, than Kirby's, but still in the same spirit. So I really like it. It's an addition, you know. It moved it forward.
You know, that's another artist. Like very people compare him. I mean, in a weird, indirect way to Kirby.
Oh, yeah. John Romita.
Like, what are your guys' thoughts?
Yeah,
on
for
that?
sure.
Like,
oh, for sure. You could definitely see it in a lot of his monsters. In one of the first time I learned who Mangog was from that Thor run that he drew. So that was in the early 2000s, I guess it was. And I was like, look at this character. You know, like this guy, like this thing looks amazing. It was Mangog. You know, I think the Celestials that he draws in
Eternals.
In the Eternals book, they just look amazing. You know, so
when he does the epic size stuff, I could definitely see because I was reading his Captain America run with Rick Remender, and I love John Romita Jr. Like as a person, like I've had lunch with him. He's a cool dude.
Guys.
Like
I love
him. I'm not a fan of his art, like overall, to be honest. And neither is Brandon. Yeah. Shocker, right? But it.
Okay. See you guys later.
All right, it was fun, y'all.
But it's one of those things. Like when I saw the monsters he was drawing inside that run, and that run reminds me a lot of the Kirby Captain America stuff when he would do weird stuff
for sure.
And everything. That kind of out of this dimension, literally things.
You know,
and seeing the monsters, I was like, see, that's what's fucking cool.
A character I
really
would have liked
and his style and appreciation to the Kirby side in that aspect. But like his stuff on Batman, I didn't take. But that's a different story.
Hold on, I think it's funny. Brandon's at lunch with John Romita Jr. He's like, so Brandon, you want this sketch?
He's like,
not a fan.
No, I was gonna say like I think like a couple
donate
of
that.
characters that
Sorry,
would-
my hands
would
are dirty
kinda
right now. I'm
jump
eating this
off the
burger
page
right now.
Are characters that he did.
I'm sorry,
but
Mike.
didn't
So
do
go ahead.
them
What
at
were
their
you gonna say?
pinnacle, right? Like a good example would be Shazam, right? Like Shazam is a very popular character now with the movies and
Yeah.
with the reinvention of the character and the whole idea of bringing in like mythology and bringing in like monsters to fight Shazam and godlike powers. Like when he was drawing Shazam, it's like, let's get the guy who stole the hot dog cart, you know, like come on, man, we have to round up all to round up all the dog catchers. You know, like the dog catcher got hit in the head with a brick, and now we have to round up the dogs. Like that was the
Lombarzo.
the Shazam stories he told, and you know that was what CC Beck was doing at that moment, and that was like acceptable. And now it's like all this like you know mythology and fucking lightning and monsters, and it's like I would like to see that version of the character from Kirby, or like even like a version of Batman where you're getting him to draw all the villains, like not to draw a Batman, not to draw a Robin, but like Kirby's Clayface.
Oh yeah.
Or like like Kirby's fucking Penguin. Like to me is like wow, like what he would have did.
I was thinking about
The
that.
Long Halloween by
full,
Jacked Kirby.
Maniacal character.
Can you imagine?
Is kind of interesting to me more than fucking Batman. Like I'm like I don't care what his Batman would have looked like. If it was Captain America with a different head, I'd be like okay cool. But like his version of Mr. Freeze with the fucking tubes coming out and like the technology. Like to me that's like a like a monster like a scarecrow that's fucking scary.
Yeah.
Like a penguin
scarecrow
that is physically deformed.
Or
like that
Bane.
would be Bane with his big giant hands. Like that would be
A
something
Bane,
to
all
me. Like,
big fisted. Damn, yeah, oh yeah. That'd be interesting. That's the thing. We didn't get like Kirby introduced so many things from the start, and he was the father of all this stuff. But it would have been awesome to see him in modern day and just seeing what he's doing with these characters and seeing how other people have interpreted them. Because I feel like some of the even Kirby Darkseid, like it was like on the cusp of being super terrifying and intense. But like even his first incarnation, he kind of had a goofy smile and grin and whatnot. But
little skinny guy.
yeah, and it's just like I feel like seeing after seeing Alex Ross do it and all these other legends and everything, it would just be that much more in proportion and expand that lore so much more. But fuck, he gave us so much, and that's the cool part, he gave us the guidelines for everything, and I've always felt it was more him than Stan Lee when you read what he wrote and created versus what Stan Lee did after Kirby or even with Kirby.
You're goddamn right.
Like, I mean, it's just one of those things, and as you grew older, you look at Stan Lee and you're like, you're not my dad.
I read something today.
And you're just like, this guy fucking did all this stuff. Like,
I just started reading.
You're my real dad.
Tomb of Dracula, right? And I never read Tomb of Dracula before. I have the Marvel app. I looked; it was on there. I was like, oh, serendipitous. It's Halloween.
Cool.
I want to read a horror comic. I've heard nothing but great things about Gene Colan and the creative team on this book. So I want to read it. So first thing I did was I opened it up. I drop it into our group chat, and somebody's like, "See you in 3 years." And I was like, "What are you talking about? Like it's only 70 issues." And they're like, "Yeah, but those 70s books are like written like fucking prose novels." And we just read a Doctor Strange run, and it was bad. And I'm like, I was 5 pages in. I was like, fuck this. I'm not reading Tomb of Dracula. I gave up today. But while I was doing a little digging, somebody said that Roy Thomas is the guy who came up with the idea of Stan Lee Presents being on all the books long after Stan Lee was gone. Like when Stan Lee took a step back, Roy Thomas was like, let's put Stan's name at the top to keep this continuity going. I don't know exactly, from the article I read, I don't know if it's true or not true. They made a compelling argument.
Yeah, it was a figurehead,
What I'm saying though is,
But
growing up,
it makes sense because he's the publisher at the time. Why wouldn't he be the guy? Well, the editor, or whatever.
Like,
why wouldn't he be the guy?
Like they got me. Like they had me fooled. Like like people are like, Stan Lee, retired from comics in 1972, and you're like, wait, what? Like
that he wasn't.
What are you talking about? I read in 1986. I was reading Avengers,
of course,
and he was clearly writing it, and they're like, no, he wasn't.
Yeah,
or worse, people
right
are
here
like,
though.
he was drawing it, and you're like, come on, man! Like, do I gotta hit you with a fucking brick? Like, he never drew any of them. Like, But it's funny because that title card, it just means everything, Quentin Tarantino has a specific way that he titles his movies. The fifth movie from Quentin Tarantino. Like, at what point are you like, all right, bud, you're just making movies. We get it now. It's not like, you know what I mean? Like, you made your first one, and now you're like the second movie.
Yeah.
The last movie. You don't like the ninth movie. All right, are you going to do 10? Are you going to do 20? Like, come on. But he still does it. It's like his little niche thing. And, like every time we're like, oh, shit, he said he's only going to do 10. Now he's at like 9, and we're like, oh, man. Yeah, like, is this next one going to be the last one? And, like, for 25 fucking years, he had us on the edge of our seat. Like, how fast is he going to make these?
Countdown.
Yeah. Oh, wow, he stretched these fuckers out, right? So, to me, it did its job. He fucking had me fooled, And if I ever see Roy Thomas, I'm going to give him a piece of my mind about it because I don't fucking like it. I don't like being tricked,
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. Like another, when you're growing up and you're seeing that your whole life, you're just like Stan Lee, like, and now everyone knows him, and we all love Stan Lee, and when you discover like when you're an adult, like, well, no, at a certain point, but when you discover, like, oh fuck, Jack is the one who did this, and you dig a bit more, and you're just like, oh, he designed everything. Oh, he dates back to way back here. He was drawing maps for World War II, and like all this stuff, like. And you're just like, oh, Stan was just like a good talker, is what he was, and
he was like the hype man. He was just
Barker, Carnival Barker, and he was a cheerleader, and he was good at it.
Well, the thing too that people don't, a lot of people who don't dive deep into comics don't realize that.
No,
like,
you're
Stan
right.
Lee,
You're right.
From what I told
and he
him,
wanted to write the
he
Great American
novel.
Novel.
Like an actor.
That he's been quoted as saying
I could
he
be
saved
wrong,
his
but I'm
real
pretty
name.
Sure. Okay.
So that if he ever wrote a novel that got published, he would be able to use Stanley Lieber. That's why he wrote under the pen name Stan Lee. So, he was modest.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So he wanted to be the center of attention. He wanted to be on the big screen, and he did kind of get that at the end of his career, And,
of course.
He did. I read part of that book that came out. I forgot who wrote it. The one that talks about his whole career in life.
The recent one, right? Like that came out a year.
There's a lot of.
There's a recent one.
Abraham.
It was the Life and Times of like Stan Lee.
Reisman?
Yeah, that one.
Yeah,
Reisman?
like that. It came out like a year or two ago.
Yeah, Reisman.
It has like a
That's
gray
it,
cover with yellow on it, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Abraham. What the hell's his name? He was going to be on the show, Mike. Abraham Reisman. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Okay.
I'm gonna grab it in a second, but
I have it
basically, he wanted to be the center of attention, so he put his name on everything on top of the Clash book. Hold on, sorry.
Get it.
It's gonna start. I'm gonna start it today.
But it's he did everything he could, and it's a cutthroat industry, so it's no surprise that he kind of threw people under the bus to get himself out there.
It's like the whole Bob Kane, Bill Finger. Yeah, that one.
This one right here.
The rise and fall of Stan Lee.
Abraham Rice.
Brandon, if the two of you guys want to read something that will open your eyes to what the industry was at that time, you guys should check a book out called Shop Talk. It was written by Will Eisner. Will Eisner, when he was at the pinnacle of his career in the
Shop Talk,
like in the twilight of his career, actually, he's a legend. They named the fucking comic book awards after him. Like, he decided that he was going to interview a bunch of his contemporaries and a bunch of his friends in the industry and just shoot the shit, literally shop talk. you know. And he conducted these interviews over a few year period, and then he put it together in a book. Still pretty easy to get. I got my hands on a vintage copy of it. That was like not so bad. But the interview with Jacked Kirby takes place at San Diego Comic-Con in the 80s. And it's like this interesting dynamic because Eisner was Kirby's boss back in the day. He hired Kirby, and then Kirby left to go on to be Jacked Kirby. And they stayed friends for years. But they had very interesting anecdotes and very interesting takes on the modern comic industry in the 80s as these legendary creators. But he interviewed so many people in that book, Andy Kubert, all these, great luminaries in the industry, and modern people too. A lot of, at that time, Frank Miller was a modern kind of guy, and he sat down and he talked
Neil
to him.
Adams,
and
Frank Miller.
There's a lot of great insight there into the idea that it's not all everybody thinks it's cracked up to be, and how close we were to never getting everything. Every one of them emphasizes the doom and gloom of like, we might lose our whole company this month. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we better start looking for something to do because we don't have any ads next month, or like whatever it is. And it's a real interesting thing, especially for younger guys like you, to maybe kind of get a different perspective on stuff, because growing up.
Yeah, I love shit like that. Like, I was super into Comics Journal and all that type of stuff, just deep diving into what the creators are talking about. And Word Balloon was another cool podcast that I dig because John Saunders. Those interviews are great, and you get some raw stuff and some truth behind it, and you really understand why Kirby always said, comics will always break your heart, and you're just like, fuck, yeah, shit's brutal as hell.
It can be.
Yeah, it's not an easy industry. I guess, and no industry is right.
Yeah.
No creative industry is easy because there's always a lot more involved than just being creative.
And once money's involved, it kind of changes everything. I mean, someone like Stan Lee, for instance, like what we were just talking about, like he, once things start getting bigger, you notice that he was having more of a presence on screen, right? Like, it was one of those things, like,
of course,
he was still around, he was still involved. Hey, movies are being made, TV shows are being made, and he starts popping up more often. Yeah. There were times I've seen like a documentary where he does mention people, of course, like he talks about Ditko and Kirby.
No, he always does. He always
did
does.
Like, for the most part, respect like their creations and everything, but he definitely was like the one, like, but I'm here.
Yeah, like when you hear that interview with him, and I forgot who's interviewing him, but they're asking him like, did co-create Spider-Man, and his whole turnaround, and he just goes in circles and circles and doesn't directly say it until he gets frustrated and walks off, and you're like, damn.
I've also heard actual interviews with Stan Lee where he's like, it was nothing to do with me, and Jack did everything. And, you know what I mean? Like, that's my biggest problem with Stan Lee isn't Stan Lee. My biggest problem with Stan Lee is that no one wants to admit that he perjured himself publicly numerous times. Like, there's these examples of things, books and interviews where they have audio like stuff, and he's like, I came over and Jack had this figure of Galactus drawn, and there was a little guy there, and I said, who's that guy? And he's like, well, if Galactus is God, then he would have to have a herald, and that's where we got the Silver Surfer. And then 6 months later, he's like, and then I went to Jack and said, we got to have a Silver Surfer. Like, it's like, what do you mean? You told that story. Like, that was live on a radio. Like, like whatever. And it's like, people just, it's the same thing that happens today with social media and fake news, so to speak, or whatever it is, right? Yeah, it basically, it's like, people are like, I didn't say that. And it's like, I have you on camera saying it. He's like, I didn't say that.
This was the fake news in the comic.
Here's you saying it live, and then they play it, and they're like, I didn't say that. Like, what are you talking about? Like, He's like, well, I said it, but I didn't mean it. You know, and it's like, oh, well, that's okay. So now we can forgive him because he's our guy. And you're like, what do you mean? Like, you know, it frustrates me now. It must have frustrated people back then. Not enough people, apparently. But it's frustrating people now. And I think one of the positive things of this era of correcting the wrongs of history, like that seems to be a current theme of just all social causes in general. Yeah. Like everybody wants their moment where they can say, admit you were wrong. And someone has to admit it, you know? And it could be something very, very small or something fucking huge and gigantic that's been a long time coming. But you can't tell me that this isn't a direct result of that movement, because all of a sudden it's like Disney legend, Jacked Kirby, you know? And it's like, oh yeah, because you guys sued him and he had to go to the Supreme Court before you settled. So last time I checked,
out of nowhere too.
That's not the guy we give statues to. You know what I mean? That's our enemy over there. But you know, it's like it definitely becomes one of those moments where you're like, they're giving him all this credit right now. Is it a good thing, or you know, like, is it it's about time thing, or is it you know, you got to just say, hey man, I'm just happy he's getting it. You know what I mean? Like, because he didn't get it for so long, you know? Like, that's the way I feel.
Yeah. Yeah.
They low-key try to downplay it because they stole everything that he ever did for 50 years. And, you know, you talk to any DC fan, and you say that to them, and the first thing they say is, Jack Kirby didn't do anything. It's fucking DC worth anything. And then you're like, Darkseid? And they're like, yeah, but besides Darkseid. What do you mean besides Darkseid? You're like, well, besides Batman, you know, it's like what that you don't just get to dismiss the single biggest villain of the last 50 years. You don't get to do that.
They're using him again and again and again.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, Darkseid is literally it
basically
when it comes to
suit, you know?
like massive story arcs. Besides, I guess, the Anti-Monitor. I mean, it's like, like who's the...
Now it's what, Darkseid's brother or something? It's supposed to be. Yeah, the way that. Yeah,
really.
It's bizarre that they, you know, like that
there's also
that
character
Darkseid
became
the you know, the one. But I mean, like, you know, you could easily point the finger at things like, you know, the run on Commandy, the Demon. Is one of the Demon. It's got to be. It's one of the most perfect beginning to end series that he ever worked on. And I stand by that. I never felt that way until, you know, I read it a couple of times and I was like, this is fucking it, man. Like, this was the book that shouldn't have got shut down. Fuck the Fourth World. You know, like, I don't like that they cut the Fourth World short, but like, this was the one they fucked up on because he was going places with that book that could have been really interesting. I highly recommend that trade paperback, because you could get it now for like $25, and forever. It was out. Yeah, they released it for his 100th birthday, and it was out of print forever. And that hardcover was like $600. Like and I'd always be like, I'm gonna get it. It'd be like $450. I'd be like, can't fucking do it. You know, I want it so bad. The issues are like $2 each, and like you could put together the issues for like $38 for the whole run. Yeah. But I was like, I want this collection. And then when they came out with it, I bought it right away. And I was like, I read it finally, and I was like, wow, that's. Tommy bought that for me for my birthday.
Some of my biggest omnibuses are the Fourth World and the Commandi one, because you're just like, I got everything now, like the whole fucking thing. Nice. Yeah, that's.
Good pattern.
It's that's the cool thing about your guys' show and what you guys are doing is like bringing attention to like the pinnacle of comic book creation. Like we wouldn't have, and everyone that's come after Kirby.
We don't like Alan Moore's
some of the
sore
best
spot
people,
for us.
Alan Moore.
I hate
Grant Morrison.
And I love his.
I'm interested about that.
No, is he?
Well,
Whoa,
I
that's the
love
first time I heard that.
all of his work. I love most of his
Yeah,
work.
you know,
but I think
Alan Moore
he's
is one of
just
those
so
names that
hypocritical
everyone's just like,
because
yeah, I don't read comics, but I love
90% of
Watchmen or
what he's famous for is kind of well 90% of what he's famous for is co-opting things that existed into his version of those things.
Oh, how
and
he
then what he
bashes on
hates the
comic book
most,
characters
what
and,
he hates the most is people adapting his stuff.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's kind of ironic. It's like,
Swamp Thing.
I hate that DC made a Watchmen movie. Let me show you my porno version of Peter Pan and Alice in Wonderland. And it's like, dude, you know, like, I hate that they made V for Vendetta. Let me show you my version of 1800 literary characters and call it the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. And he's fucking good at it. Like, he's really good at it. Like, his Swamp Thing.
I've always said that
his Swamp Thing is
fan fiction writer
incredible.
more than anything,
His, his fucking runs on stuff is incredible. But like
Miracle Man and shit, like
the Charlton,
I mean, even the Watchmen characters are based on characters from.
the question.
Yeah,
it's like,
so
okay, I've always
you're right.
wanted
That's
to do
a
this.
fan fiction.
And then
Is
if
a
you do
really
it
good
twice,
fan
you're
fiction.
like,
Is
well,
a great
I
way
did
to
it once and it
kind
worked. Let me do it again.
of twist them.
When you do it like all the time, Promethea is Wonder Woman. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's like
all the time.
Yeah.
Well, I was saying
it's just like at a certain point. Let's be honest. What is Alan Moore?
Miracle
Doc
Man.
Savage, Miracle
Really
Man was already a
famous
IP.
for?
Like, yeah,
is he
that's
famous
true.
for being a creator, or is he famous for elevating existing things to places you never knew they could go? Like, I never thought in my life I would see Wendy scissor Alice from Alice in Wonderland, and yet here we are. I'm on a train reading Lost Girls, and I'm like, can't read this anymore in public. Like, you know, I did not know that there was going to be a Peter Pan inspired dildo. You know, like, I did not know that.
Yeah, no, yeah,
crazy,
that would not take
but,
that
you know,
one
like,
out.
it's like, you know, even From Hell is like, oh, that's Jack the Ripper. Like, it's not, it's you know, it's you took
one of
fucking
those
Sherlock
things, yeah.
Holmes basically and Jack the Ripper and gave him, you know, a drug habit,
just
which
research,
Sherlock
yeah.
Holmes has.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like, it's like everybody's like, well, he just made him a drug addict. It's like, Sherlock Holmes was a drug addict. Like, you know, like, Johnny Depp's character is a fucking drug addict. He's Sherlock Holmes, basically, for all intents and purposes. Just not as sharp, you know?
Yeah.
Like, and yet, he's a genius. You know, because he has a fucking beard and he yells at people. It's like, hey, come on, fuck out of here. Like, you know, and I love him. I mean, like, yeah, exactly. My whole fucking bookshelf is filled with his work. I mean, I love it. Whereas you take a look at a guy like Neil Gaiman, who is like a fucking writer. Like, Neil Gaiman writes novels, poetry, kids' books, horror stories, you know, fiction, then turns around and does a real superhero story. And then, you know, goes and does a fucking, you know,
screenplays, TV shows,
what do you call it? Weave World books. You know what I mean? Like, not Weave World, Mirror Mask. He does that. The Mirror Mask, where he jumps in with these other authors and stuff, and he works collaboratively, and then, you know, he's releasing these comics, and then, you know, also, by the way, responsible for, you know, Sandman, which is widely considered to be one of the greatest series ever written, you know? Oh, fucking, that's awesome, man. Yeah.
I have one comic book tattoo.
See you later, babe. I'm out of here. I'm moving to El Paso.
Like, that's
cool.
like,
yeah.
that's my shit.
John Romita
Mike's
Jr.
gonna marry you, man.
Fucking...
Kick
Tell your
rocks,
hot
Mike's
wife
moving in.
Tell your
you
hot
know?
wife to go live with John Cinco.
John Romita Jr.
Bill Sienkiewicz.
Yeah, let him drink.
Hey, baby, get out of here.
Don't worry.
Go to one of your comic book lovers.
We got Mike from Jersey.
Me and Mike
here
It's
now.
true though. It's like, you know,
He's a
those kind of
teacher. Don't
guys
worry, we're good.
get overlooked. Like, you know, Alan Moore and Neil Gaiman get put in the same sentence a lot. And if I was Neil Gaiman, I would want
times.
to punch Alan Moore directly in the fucking face. That's just me. Like, if I did all the things that Neil Gaiman did, and they were like, Neil Gaiman and Alan Moore, I'd be like, don't say that. Like, you know, like, you say Steve Ditko
totally
and
see
Jack
your
Kirby in the
viewpoint.
same sentence, and people are like, that's cool. You know, you say, like, you know, I don't know, Eric Larson and Todd McFarlane in the same sentence, nobody's going to really look at you sideways. You know what I mean? You say, a person who's only done one kind of thing and this like really fucking iconic, eclectic guy, I think I'd be like, don't compare me to that fucking guy. Like they couldn't be more different. And yet that's the, yeah. And it's
right.
great.
Even, like,
it's
my
so
favorite
good.
Providence
I love Lovecraft and I love that
Lovecraft
comic.
But
it's like
it's just Lovecraft worked.
Hey, I got a new idea, guys. It's an old idea. Let me tell you about it. It's like, that's it. It's instead of a 6-shooter, it's a 1-shooter.
I'm bringing back Billy the Kid.
It's true. It's seriously.
And he's a whore. He's a man.
That's got to be it, right? Those are the pitch meetings. Like those are. He's like, have you ever read Sherlock Holmes?
No.
Yeah. Okay. What about Alan Quatermain?
Mm-hmm.
Have you read Dracula? Let me tell you about Mina Harker. It's like, and we're gonna have the rapey Invisible Man. It's
He's
like
kind of like Sherlock
it's
Holmes.
Like you're pitching a fucking sitcom,
exactly.
which every sitcom is basically the same show. Just you change little.
That's
details,
what makes it edgy.
But it's all like the same story, right?
Yeah.
So basically, that's Alan Moore's career in a nutshell. And then he just fucking screams at the wall.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I hate that you guys want to pay me all this money for my characters that I stole from someone else. Brooding.
And then he lights a cigarette and sits there.
Yeah, dude, that's
brooding.
Well, I mean, as we begin to wind down a bit, what are your guys' thoughts on Grant Morrison too? I'm just very curious. We're talking about Neil Gaiman a lot, and Alan and Kirby.
He's a writer whose stuff I like, and obviously he's done big stuff, and he's a good writer. But I always feel like, I don't know if it's just me, but whenever I read his stuff, I always feel like there's panels missing, or like full pages missing of information. It's like, wait, how do we get from here to here? There's a lack of cohesion in his stuff.
Rereading some of his stuff lately, like I'm a big Morrison fan. That's like one of the few guys that got me into like comics. I love the Invisibles and stuff, but rereading the Invisibles, I'm just like, fuck, this is more confusing than the first time I read it. Like, was I on more drugs the first time I read it than I am now? Like, was it like a youth thing? Like,
but not confusing like Claremont X-Men was confusing because it jumped around and it referenced something from 4 years ago out of nowhere. Yeah. Not confusing in that way, and it's not even confusing, but it's just we
grew up.
I always feel like it's incomplete,
like script and not realizing how fucking complex it was.
How did you get from here to here? You never explained it.
Oh, you know what I mean? Like, do you see Cyclops' her ass in the bathing suit? Like, you know what I mean? Like we were thinking about like, yeah. Yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it's like that's what we were concerned about.
She needs two
hair, you're like, this is heavy.
Hairstyles to wear that outfit.
I feel like Morrison is the 90s to 2000 version of Claremont, where like if you read it a second time, you're like, man, there's a lot of exposition here, and there's a lot of deepness to this that I glossed over because I was like, this is cool. Animal Man is cool. It's like it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't.
Yeah, I gotta give Claremont stuff a second chance because Brandon and I, we've read a handful of it, and it's like
it's hard. It's really hard.
People rave about it, and I'm just like, has this guy ever had a conversation with like another human being?
Yeah, I mean.
You just have to ignore the yellow box.
My thing,
serious.
My thing with that writing style is like, I get it. The internet wasn't really a thing back then at all. Like, you couldn't just Google who the hell Wolverine was. Mm-hmm. But like, every comic is every character announcing their name, who they are.
He's Wolverine. He's the best at what he does.
Their origin story,
what he does,
like why they're there, who they're looking for, and then by the time you read all that, it's been like one panel. And it's just every issue is like, I am Cyclops. I shoot laser beams, and I am part of the X-Men, and I am from issue 7, and I'm gonna like it just keeps going.
Right before the X-Men movie came out, I had borrowed from our friend
400s,
Joey
500s, yeah.
all of his Uncanny X-Men books, and he had like from I think like 75 on up until whenever that movie came out. Fucking what was it? 1999 or something like that. So I read everything, even the 90s crap, which that's kind of where it ended because it was the 90s, you know, or because he stopped buying it or whatever the case was. But so I read all the Claremont stuff straight through, and that's when you start to see the things that like threads that were dropped, or like the references that like, where the fuck did this come from? This hasn't happened in 5 years. You know, you haven't seen this guy in 7 years, and now he's a major player.
He's a great writer,
but you also get to see him lay those, you know,
I love that
run
in my head,
and how they play out later.
Every time I try to go back and read any of it, I'm like, this is fucking terrible. And we were, you know, we have a friend who Bortnick is no, but you know what I mean. Like, it's not what I remember, and it's not the nostalgia that I'm looking for when I go back to revisit it.
I don't agree.
And I'm kind of like, I'll just look at these pictures because they're really good. But like even Bortnick and, you know, Tommy will say like, it's not that great. It's like, he's like the biggest X-Men fan ever. And he's like, you know, he's like, look, I'm not going to defend it that much. Like, you know, it's like, it's for us, it's a touchstone. But then you kind of get away from it for a while. And then like, I feel like I need to go back to that. And then you're like, but maybe I don't. I just need to remember how great it was. In here, you know, and Morrison, I think, is that for late 90s, early 2000s comics. Like where, you know, he's that kind of guy where people are like, I grew up, I loved Grant Morrison. And then they're like, I went back and I read Animal Man again.
I'm probably the same way.
I don't know, you know, like it's a little strange, you know, or you know, like you said, the what was the other one that you mentioned, Brandon? The Invisibles. That book is weird, man. It's just a really weird book. It was weird the first time, and when you try to reread it again, you're like, this is really, really weird. And now I thought I understood it, but maybe I didn't, you know? And it's like, I don't know, I don't want to...
Like, fuck.
Same thing with their run on like, I mean, I think Morrison's Batman run is pretty amazing. And I think at that point in their career, they already have like established their writing style and had practice. But like, you read Batman R.A.P. and you're like, what the fuck am I doing with my time right now?
That's the era where for me, you know, having gone back and read that shit, I wasn't reading when it was coming out, but
like he wrote
that's when you really notice the quote unquote missing panels.
That book was great because it had all these, you know, Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, go away, and you have all these other centerpiece characters. Black Adam. There's the team with Starman, Animal Man, and Starfire on another planet, and then you have this team over here, and this team is doing this, and all these missions and side stories are kind of, you know, happening at the same time. And someone gave that to me as a, like, to get me back reading again, and I was like, this is comic books. Like, these are, you know, like I knew characters, but I hadn't read them for years, and I was like, all of a sudden I'm like super into Black Adam, and all of a sudden I'm like, Starman, he needs the series, you know, like it was just this like great conglomerate of talent, and they did a great thing, and it was like they had that year-long event, and then they were like, how can we fuck this up? You know, like, let's get back to doing things back the old way, you know. And it's like, no, you guys just groundbreak. You guys did something amazing for a year, weekly. You know, like you had people going and buying a book.
We've just established this. Let's ruin it.
You know, like in the modern market, that's unheard of. And then the reveal was, and we're right back to normal. Let's go. You know, and it's like, and I love it.
Like,
I love it because I read it once.
Like, supposedly,
and if I ever go back and read it again, I know I'm going to be like, this guy's a fucking crackhead. Like, you know, what is he doing?
Yeah.
And like, I recommend it to people who've never read it. Like, Tommy, we were talking about it recently, and me and James were like, you should read it. To I think we were talking to Ray or somebody. But at the same time, it's like I don't want to read it again because I know how this story ends. Like I'm gonna be jaded and disappointed, and yeah, I'm gonna be jaded and disappointed, and I'm gonna be like, fuck, Grant Morrison, and I don't want to say
where the fuck did the vampire come
because
from?
I like Grant Morrison. Yeah, man. That's it.
Nice. Well, fuck, guys. This was indeed a King Sized Kirby episode.
Yeah, you got some king sized boys right here.
Well,
if you want to do like books
up,
that
like, what are your
people
top
probably
Kirby
haven't read that they should read, like first of all, if you read any Marvel books, you're reading Kirby, whether you know it or not. Chances are he invented one or more of the main characters or characters in every series that you're reading, and that's just the way it is. People could debate it all they want. That's true. But if I was saying like from Marvel, I would seek out some of his 70s work. Like the Black Panther series and the Eternals and Captain America, his run on Captain America. They're really different than all of his 60s work. And I think people know those images, but they don't know the stories. Yeah. Like a lot of those images are used for marketing and promotion, but they don't really, they influence they emphasize the 60s stories, not the 70s stories. So that Marvel picks their two strongest parts. The stories from the 60s are probably better, and then the images and the art maybe are a little stronger here, and then they kind of mix and match them. And if you're not a fan, you don't even realize it's happening. But yet, those to me are just really great. And then on the DC side, I would recommend the Demon.
Yeah,
it's the unsung hero of Jack's work at DC. I mean, it's fucking great. And Etrigan never stops popping up. And I truly believe, I think it's two reasons. I think artists would love to draw him.
No.
And he's a great concept. If I was a writer, I'd be like, and now the Demon walks in. It's like they put him in stuff he doesn't even belong in. And then you're like, fuck yeah. Like, I'm listening to this Sandman audiobook right now. And when the Demon comes in, I was like, this guy's voice is amazing. He's on for like 10 seconds. And I'm like, I don't know. It's like some real gravelly voice. And he talks in rhymes. And it's fucking fantastic. And it's like for maybe
who does
10
the
minutes
voice
in a 30-minute episode in a 6-hour season 1. And I was like, that was it right there. This is fucking Etrigan, So he keeps popping up for a reason because he's fucking cool to look at and use. So 18 issues, that's a great run and good value at like $25 for the trades. You can't beat that. What about you, T?
$25, yeah. Fuck yeah.
I would recommend OMAC, One Man Army Corps. It's one of my favorites. It's only 9 issues.
All in single issue too. I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, they're not hard to get, but I love the concept, and the thing that I talked about it that I was most impressed with when we did our episode about OMAC was how there's a lot of the things that that's a book written in the 70s about the future, but it has a lot to do with what's going on in the world now, currently, modern times, and it had a lot of like mirrors, societal mirrors and stuff like that. So I think it's a book that, because of that, is timeless, and it's a really cool concept. It's out there. It's like perfect Kirby stuff, Bicentennial Battles, the 1976 first Marvel Treasury edition. It's a Jack Kirby, his first major work back at Marvel in 76, and it's one of my favorite Kirby things. It's whatever it is, 48 pages, oversized. They just did a reprint of it over the summer, so you could get it easily. And it's just, again, it takes place, you know, it was written in the 70s and it takes place throughout time, throughout America's history. But there's a lot of, I feel like, important messages about America as a country and as a concept, you know, that especially last year when we did our episode about it in 2020 mirrored a lot of what was going on, you know, like in the country as far as the debates and the you know, the unrest, the civil unrest and human rights, civil rights and whatnot. And, you know, it's really good.
Fuck yeah.
Those would be the two that I recommend. A third one, I mean, you can't beat the Fantastic Four run of Jack.
I got the
Stan.
omnibus
You know,
for that one too, because I was like, I gotta admire the fuck out of everything.
Nice.
Do you what I wanted to ask was, like, you know, assuming you got the chance, you know, like if you could magically talk to Jack for like an afternoon, you know, what would you ask or tell him if you had the chance? Like, if there's like one thing you just don't understand with his work,
like, what's up with this paste pot Pete guy? Why do you guys always have this guy with this big bucket of cum like, all over the place, just shooting cum, you know, all over the Fantastic? Nah, go ahead, Tommy. I know I wanted to. I had to get paste pot Pete in there.
He's
I'm
great.
sorry.
Okay.
He's a fan fave.
You know, yeah, he definitely is. If you could go back and talk to him, I would be like, dude, protect your creations. You know, that's, you know, giving him advice in hindsight. You know, get what you deserve. Don't get stepped on. That would be my Jack Kirby advice.
Yeah.
If I had to ask him a question,
I
don't know if I would ask him
you know,
about
like,
any of his work really,
more
but
along the
I'd
lines
probably
of,
talk
like,
about old New York and growing up in New York.
Didn't you care?
That's dope.
You know, for a guy who seemed to care about everything, and like to care about his family, to care about constantly finding job, to be always employed, to constantly be making money, you know, to always be willing to jump into the fire of a brand new situation because there was an opportunity. Like, he was definitely a guy who didn't shy away from taking chances. For a guy who was willing to do all of those things, why did he never, you know, follow up with standing up for himself or, you know, taking the stand and saying, I'm not leaving, I'm staying, and this is fucking mine, and you're going to have to take me to court for it, or, you know, like something like that. And I know there's probably legitimate reasons that we can't understand because, you know, we're not a part of those negotiations or that industry at that time. You know, I don't know what you guys do for a living in your personal lives, but if you talk to anybody in any industry, there's like the old timers and the you know, the people who are in it now, and the middle people, and then the young people. And you talk to them, and they're like, the old people are always like, the young people, you guys got it like shit. Our pension's better, and this, that, whatever. And then they'll also tell you where they had to work like 93 hours a day. And, you know, like, we had no ventilation in the building. And you're like, wait, hold on. So you have a great pension, but you died when you were 64. You know, like, it's like, I don't know if it's a trade-off exactly. Like, nobody exactly sees it to the same way, right? So I think I'd like to speak to him from the perspective of the industry of the 50s and 60s. Because we look at it and we're like, what a dick. He didn't stand up for himself. Or why did he leave DC? He should have fought him, you know? And it's like, it's easier said than done sometimes, you know? And he was also a very smart guy. And I don't think he made decisions, you know, lightly. And so I'd like to get the explanation, the backstory, you know, like why he got sued for Challenges of the Unknown and Sky Masters, and, you know, like why he couldn't go back to DC for 30 years and then went back to DC because they wanted him and they undercut him. Like, you know, like all these different things. Like, I'd love to hear his opinion on that, because that's an insider baseball point of view that you can't get from anybody. Even if you hear people from that era talk, they're not him. You know, like they're not Stan, they're not Jack, they're not, you know, Carmine Infantino, they're not the publishers, they're not those guys. Yeah, exactly. So, you know, you hear Roy Thomas talking, I'm like, I don't want to hear you fucking talk. You know, like, I want to hear Jack tell me, and Jack's like, no, I got nothing to say. And that's, you know, that's the truth. Like, most of it is, there's nothing documented.
Yeah, exactly,
it leaves you to what do you call it? Speculate.
No point looking back.
And
also
I'd
for
love
him,
to
it was
end that.
because
I'd
everything
love
was
to
forward
Yeah.
motion
have like
for
a
him.
concrete, you know, this is how I got fucked over, and I'm okay with it. Like I've made my peace with it, and it is what it is.
Just understanding of that whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, honestly, that's brilliant because it's one
I
of
hope
the most
they win.
heartbreaking things, and I don't know. I feel like this whole Ditko estate.
I root for chaos,
Doctor
like,
Strange
like
and
in these
Spider-Man, I feel like they're gonna
situations.
do the same thing, and just I would love if they won, just to get some justice.
Well,
for
more
these
like
people, but
how great would it be
Yeah,
if, like,
to see-
then the next guy
see
comes out and
Disney
is like,
just
I
tremble and
created
just go,
the
"What do
Great
we do now?"
Avengers, and now
Yeah,
I want
exactly. Like,
I
that'd
want
be
my
beautiful.
part of the little comic book that they sold, not even a movie. Like I want they sold 30,000
Well,
issues of Avengers
that's-
number 386.
I think that's why they're so scared.
And I want my percentage of it's like
Yeah.
that would be great if they just got nickel and dimes and fucking death. And they used Ditko's case as precedent. That would be amazing.
yeah, if
Yeah,
comic
I mean-
book creators were paid like actors and musicians and shit because they deserve it, they're everything.
I read a
every
great
other
quote
medium
today.
does pretty much
I don't
pulls it
remember
from a
who
comic
said
book,
it.
especially
It was
nowadays.
from
I
an
can't
early
remember.
comic
So,
book
yeah.
writer and cartoonist, and he said the reason why the word graphic novel was created was because people were embarrassed that they were cartoonists and they were drawing comics, and they were mortified to tell their contemporaries, I draw Popeye or I draw Captain America, even though they were being paid well. And even though they were probably making more money than their contemporaries, there was a pride thing. Like, you know what I mean? It would be like, kind of working at McDonald's or, like the idea. And there's,
Oh yeah.
yeah, and he said that,
but the point of that quote, Mike, was that the guy who wrote it said, "I'm a cartoonist, and I'm proud to be a cartoonist."
To see that comics are now recognized and embraced by education, not only in the library for fun, but in the classrooms and in curriculum. Thursday at New York Comic Con is a whole educator day. I got to go for free this year for that day with the pass because it's an educator day where they have almost all the panels have some angle towards education. So to me, using comics in the classroom, finding a connection to your students, whatever it is, it's pretty great. And we've come a long way. I mean,
dude, yeah, I took classes for comics in college. Brandon
major is
literally
garbage
has
pail can,
minor
kid
in
collecting.
comic books.
That's fucking amazing.
Over the years.
What do you call it? I think it was 2000, somewhere in the 2000s. Time magazine put out 100 most influential books of 1900 to 2000, and Watchmen. When Watchmen's on the list, it made the list with novels, and that was the moment where I think like a lot of the tide turned a little bit, and they were like, "This is literature. This is this is beautiful artwork, and that could be literature too. Like that could be highbrow writing and highbrow entertainment." And I think that's definitely where we are. There's a whole subgenre of comics that aren't comics, like what we think of comics. There, no spandex, no fucking superheroes. There's like comics like like that are real life and really basic set and real world situations, and they're fucking selling hundreds of thousands of copies. People are becoming rich off of it, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the industry as a whole. I mean, it's crazy how it's gone from like the 30s to almost 100 years later, where we're still kind of struggling on stuff, and how much it's broadened up and advanced too. Like, fucking insane. Just in general, there were funny books at one point. But damn, guys, This was an epic conversation.
Yeah.
This
Oh,
was
we want
cosmic
you
in
guys
every
for
way. This
sure.
was, like,
We're gonna set
fulfilling.
something
I'm
up,
so
man.
glad
We'd
you
love
guys
to have
could
you
come
guys
to the
come
show.
over. We'll
Hope we
talk
get to
about
do
it.
again,
We'll give you guys a
either
specific
way,
arc, and
you're
we'll come and
ours.
we'll
This has
break it
been-
down. That'd be dope.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll get you on.
Oh yeah.
Oh, down.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, super down for
Hell
that.
yeah.
And, I mean, that's what, on our show, Brandon and I are both writers, and that's what we do. We break stuff down and look at arcs and panels and words and all that shit. So
Yeah.
it's all
I've listened.
it's all educational for us and whatnot. So it's fun stuff. But where can they find you? I'm gonna put links in the bio, of course, but Instagrams, Facebooks, anything you plug with
Yeah,
you.
Instagram and Facebook. Instagram, it's at Jacked_Kirby. You can find us there. We have a Facebook page as well. Facebook page doesn't get
There
much
is, yeah. We just did that
interaction,
to connect it
but,
to
it's
a
starting to
website,
kinda build up a little
and,
bit more.
I didn't know. I
Um,
just always shared
there's
the
a Tumblr page,
and then all of a
right,
sudden
right.
one day I
Old
logged
school,
into
hell
Tumblr
yeah.
and it was like, you have 2 billion
Nice.
reshares, and I was like, holy shit! Like apparently, through the years, people have been sharing it, and I had no idea. I shut the notifications off, and I was like, I logged in one day, and I was like the number just kept growing and growing, like the national debt, and I was like, oh shit! I was like, that's cool. I mean, we just share from Instagram. It's the exact same post on Tumblr, but I don't know. I guess that's a thing. Tumblr is popular, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, Spotify.
There's a market. Yeah, I didn't know that.
and where anywhere you want to listen to the show,
Apple, iTunes,
you'll find
yeah.
us. Just search us, Jacked Kirby.
And
J-A-C-K-E-B.
Tommy has his own art
Yeah,
page. Tommy, go
Spotify,
ahead, go
Stitcher, all that shit.
Yeah.
We're everywhere.
Nice.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's right.
And
I am an
I
artist.
also run
taking
a
commissions
horror,
now at Tommy
themed
Lombardozzi on
Master
Instagram.
Sardo's
Hit me up
Archive.
if you need anything.
It's pretty interesting. I try to focus same kind of concept that we did with Jack Kirby, where we did like a historical point of view. And if you see something that you like, I give you all the information on where you could find it. But from a horror movie perspective, because that's something that I love as well. So Master Sardu's Archive on Instagram, you could check that out too. That would be really
Fuck
cool.
yeah.
Nice. Maybe we'll do like a horror Jack Kirby comic. That'd be dope.
Oh yeah. Dope. Yeah, we gotta have some horror talks in. I'm down as fuck for that.
Yeah, we'll do it. Maybe we'll do the
There you
demon.
go.
That'd be cool. That'd be we'll do an arc from the demon.
Perfect time to talk about the
definitely-
demon.
October's
couple
over.
of
Yeah.
mini arcs
October's
in there.
over.
Oh,
We
yeah.
did
Yeah,
that.
we've only done
Yeah,
one.
the
so
demon
far.
would be perfect.
So we'll do.
Perfect, yeah.
Yeah. Good. Read it. You're gonna need it. You're gonna need it because we're gonna have you on soon.
I'm intrigued now.
Super
I'm definitely
down.
gonna go buy it. So.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Do it.
Oh
well,
boy.
guys, thank you for being on our 100th episode.
Yes.
Thank you guys. It was a pleasure.
I
Thank you
feel
so
like
much.
we could have talked for 8 hours. Like
Yeah, like literally, this could have been like a 20-part episode. Like I could have gone on.
We'll keep it up throughout, through the next
Oh,
few
yeah.
months. We'll figure it out. Thank you guys. It was an honor.
Oh,
Thank you
thank
so
you for
much.
being here. That was an honor
For real,
itself.
it was really cool to meet you
And
guys and be
we'll-
on with you guys.
We got
Appreciate
very
it.
low standards. my friend.
That was a blast.
But thank you so much, guys. It was fun.
Of course, and we'll talk about Jack soon. We'll Jack together. So, thanks for
Whoa.
thanks for hanging, guys.
There you go.
It's the after party.